office, I think we're going to be showing the packet as we go along. So
Okay,
it'll be on the screen so that you can see. It'll be on the Zoom screen for you.
great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That would be good if we did more shared documents.
That's great. That helps.
Alrighty.
Yeah, you'll have to share. Someone will, whoever's running the meeting will have to share their screen with Cheryl.
Oh, they gave me access, so
Okay.
I'm actually sharing my screen.
Okay.
Yep.
We worked it out ahead of time.
Yep.
All right. There you go.
Wonderful.
You're in good hands with Juan.
All righty.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live on YouTube.
With that being said, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome to the September 22nd Shelton School Board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a flag here. Let's do this. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
flag of the United
United
States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
Indivisible.
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Great.
Thank you all very much. Have members of the board had a chance to review the agenda?
Yes.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
Nope.
If
I
not-
will make a motion to approve the agenda for our September 22nd meeting.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as it's published. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All righty, we have our agenda. At this point in time, we come to the opportunity for community comments. School board meetings are streamed live via YouTube every second and fourth Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. Similar to in-person meetings, the board invites community members to make public comments in person by calling the phone number and entering the meeting ID during the community comment time. Please make sure your phone is on mute by pressing *6 until it is time to speak. Press *9 to raise your hand if you wish to speak. When called upon, you can unmute yourself by pressing *6 again. The public comment procedure allows each person 3 minutes to speak, and comments will be heard during the 2 community comment periods. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items that are not on the agenda. However, the board may direct the superintendent to follow up on certain items that may arise during public comment if appropriate. As with in-person meetings, public comments received in writing or by email will not be read aloud, but will be directed for follow-up where appropriate. Please be mindful of how you present your comments, as the board will not allow complaints against individual staff members or students in open session unless that individual has requested an open public hearing. So please state your name before speaking. And at this time, do we have anybody wishing to comment? Host, do we have a community comment? A member from the public wishing to comment?
We have Mike S. with his hand raised. We have actually several hands raised.
All righty. I'll let you direct the list. And again, just state your name before speaking, please, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Mike S., please continue.
Yes, thank you. Mike Scobletti, Union, Washington. The Board of Education and the district administration have the opportunity going forward to adjust district policy and school operations and revisit past decisions in the light of changing conditions and feedback. Without getting too graphic about what our custodial work entails, whether 5 people share a toilet bowl or 50, it takes the same amount of time to clean it. And the need to clean and sanitize our school buildings has never been more urgent. The square footage of the buildings hasn't changed. The time and effort and care it takes to clean hasn't changed. The importance has only increased. Daily, the classrooms, workrooms, and other common areas that are being used are being touched and coughed on by teachers, paras, secretaries, tech support, and now many students have been brought back to these buildings. Their health and safety is a sacred trust, and it's unreasonable and unsafe to expect a severely reduced custodial staff to try to race around, cut corners, and be responsible for an impossible task. The cuts to custodial staff were disproportionate when they were made. It's a 12% cut to the total district's budget that was made, or 15% to the general fund. Yet you laid off.
I'm not seeing a Zoom meeting.
You laid off 31% of the staff who clean your building. A 12% cut, 31% staff layoff for the cleaning crew in a pandemic. Really? For the health and safety of our community, our students, staff, and our families, the board and district administration should reallocate the funds necessary to restore custodial staffing so that we can at least meet a minimum standard of hygiene. What we do, actually, do you mind if I pause? Can we get a mute on the other lines that are coming through?
I just muted.
Thank you very much.
Out what it was.
Okay. My apologies. So what we do as custodians is not as exciting as sports. It's not as noble as leadership. It's not as interesting as the curriculum. But cleanliness is still next to godliness, and we don't want any more of our community members going to meet God before their time. When more staff in your buildings get infected, I mean, we've already had several this year, and students too, the board and the administration should ask itself, do you really want to have to go to their families or to court and say, well, we cut a third of our cleaning crew, but think of all the money we saved. It almost pays for our 2 athletic directors. We urge the board to reconsider, I urge the board to reconsider the disproportionate and dangerous cuts to the custodial staffing. In this time when more, not less, cleaning and sanitizing is needed, and when staff and students are at more, not less risk, we really need all hands on deck. Less is not more, less is less. Cutting the custodians in a pandemic is not just pitiful penny pinching, it's perilous and perverse. We urge you to restore the custodial staff and prioritize the health and safety of our community. Thank you. Sincerely, Mike Scobletti and Jimmy, on behalf of the custodians and the families of Shelton School District. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Host, who do we have next?
We have L. Chappell. And please be advised that I will be interjecting when there is 30 seconds remaining on your 3-minute timer. Ms. Chappell, please go ahead. You need to unmute. Thank you.
Thank you, board, for this time. My name is Lori Chappell, and I am a proud staff member of Olympic Middle School, and I'm starting my 18th year with the district. I wanted to speak tonight about the use of paras. As you know, during spring shutdown, OMS was on the forefront of using their paras in a team teaching model. The admin and SPED department trusted the paras to provide small group educational support to the SPED kids, and they did. We were accountable, we came in, we had work schedules. I can't go into depth how it all worked and what we accomplished and learned from that experience as the time is short. But the paras were used to their fullest. One thing though during that time we did learn was, and that we all know, is that connections that we provided to those kids were paramount during an unknown and scary time. It is a philosophy that is highly enforced at OMS. Connecting and making relationships with our students is one of the highest priorities by providing them with quality educational experiences. Our staff lives by it. In a study group on September 10th, school board member Mrs. Davidson talked about a teacher she met, and I'm paraphrasing. The teacher said in her situation that she couldn't have a para working alongside her. She was having to learn K9 herself, so it'd be too hard for her to try and create plans for a para when she was just learning the curriculum. Mrs. Davis was curious about all that and how paras are used. As she has stated, she's not in favor of bringing everyone back, but making sure we had people in places that are needed. And as those kids said, vulnerable kids, etc. In that same meeting, Dr. Apostle, and I quote, said, "I've heard for years in a traditional model where teachers have said to me, 'Alex, I don't have the time to train a para to really help me.' That's in a traditional setting. It's nothing new to hear a teacher say, 'I don't have the time to train a para to be really useful to me. I need the time for myself, especially during these times.'" And I think these times we are needed. And I'm speaking directly about OMS. Things are happening at OMS. We are in the forefront of the model school. We are bringing students in. Every para that is assigned to OMS school board is working from the building. We are working with students in some kind of capacity. Our teachers are happy that we are there. We are providing small group instruction, and they are happy. They have said, "We can't do this without you." We work as a team. We're learning K-12 right along with them. And if something new is learned, it's shared with everyone because we are in this together at OMS. During this time, it is my understanding that every building was granted so many positions. And we are short of positions. I was moved into the ELL position, which is much needed for our ELL kids, but that left our SPED side short. And at OMS, our teachers want our help. Comments are, "Thank goodness you're here to do a small group. These kids need you." And we need some more SPED hours at OMS. We are working full capacity. We brought kids in this week. Everybody is moving forward for kids and their families. Dr. Apostle even said that OMS is really moving forward for the kids and their families in special circumstances. And they're on the forefront of bringing students back into the building. And it's true. We are, and we did this week. As you know, our enrollment is pretty successful. And I just urge that you guys, as Ms. Davidson said, she wanted people where there's a need. And OMS has a need. We need more SPED hours. We need people in our building because we are instructing. We are doing things. We are accountable to these kids. Maddie and Chelsea, under their leadership, is moving us forward in an uncharted territory. And they are steering this ship, and we are right there along with them. I've had many parents tell me things are not always perfect, but OMS is doing a really good job of connecting with families and providing these small group instructions for their kids. So when you look at need again, when you look at people coming back, think about those schools like OMS who are on the forefront of making things happen. And I'm only speaking for my building because that's my experience. Thank you for your time. And I hope that you'll get to hear more in depth about what is happening at OMS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lori. Host, who do we have next?
We have another individual with a hand raised, identified as 9146. Sorry for the overrun on the time last time. I was renaming people to get phone numbers off of displays and I missed the countdown timer. So
Thank you.
So individual with the last four of a phone number of 9146, you are currently muted. Please unmute yourself and make your comments, and I will interject at 30 seconds to give you your 30-second warning.
Great. Thanks very much. My name is Kathy Harper. I'm from Mountain View Families. I have a couple of questions on this new curriculum. And was the board policy on curriculum adoption for significant changes in the curriculum? Was it used to adopt our K-12 program? And we would like to know the process in which it was used to consider this one, and how many people, which other people were consulted on it. Another question I have is, I've heard that the district adopted this program because we already used it for credit recovery or as an online option for alternative learning. Was the program vetted for its appropriateness for the purpose for which we're using it prior to its adoption? And was due diligence used in this decision to ensure that the program was appropriate for our families? Was the district also, and the school board, aware that the K-12 program was designed to be an at-home school program with the primary responsibility of instruction and supervision placed on the learning coach in the home? Was this taken into consideration as appropriate format for the families in our district? Was it fully and clearly explained to the district families prior to the start of the school year? And what's the difficulty of using the online resources for families considered when we're introducing this program? And, there's many things I've written down here. What is the exact cost? I've heard a number floating around the bend, but I would like to at least have an estimate of what numbers, how much money we actually spent on it. I've been told it's not the $2 million that I have heard. And did the district take into consideration that approximately 20% of our families are not native English speaking? Were they aware that the learning coach materials are not translatable, nor are portions of the curriculum?
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. And I understand that the K-12 is very advanced, and how are we going to consider this is going to be with the kids from closures last year? How are we addressing that? And I do have some teacher concerns. I've heard from many teachers, so I would like to know what can we do about their concerns as well.
Thank you for bringing that up. I hope that everybody that has concerns and is calling in for community comment continues to hold the line. When we get to item 6 in the agenda, we'll have quite a discussion about a lot of the issues coming up with the opening of school, and that'll be quite an extensive conversation. So I hope that people will hang on. Post, do we have someone else raising their hand?
I see no other individuals raising hands, but I don't know if there's anything else that anybody wishes to speak without having raised their hand first. A reminder that *9 raises your hand for the Zoom meeting if you need to, if you're dialing in by phone. Seeing no further hands raised at this time, I think we may be over for this period.
And there is a additional comment period toward the end of the meeting if anybody else has thinks of anything else they want to say or wants to comment on any of the discussion. So at this point in time, we will move on to reports and recognitions. First up, we have our audit exit report with our state auditor's office. They've been in our business office with our staff and conducting an audit. They do this every year. And I think at this time, I'll probably turn it over to Dr. Apostle or Brenda to kind of preface the audit and then introduce our auditors.
Okay, Alex, do you want me to take over? It's my pleasure to introduce tonight Cheryl Friesen and Carol Ellinger from the State Auditor's Office. I have to say, when we started this audit and had to do it remotely, I was quite nervous because I had never done that before, and a lot of paper shifts hands during an audit, but they made it simple, I guess is the term, but we did send a lot of emails back and forth with huge documents between us. So I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl and let her share her screen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. My name is Cheryl Friesen. I'm an assistant audit manager for Team Port Orchard, and I was the lead auditor for the audit for Shelton School District this year. And like Brenda said, with me, I have Carol Ellinger, who is the audit manager for Team Port Orchard.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us today. For the exit, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And this is the exit handout document then that we are going to review tonight. First of all, I want to start off saying that this was a very new experience for us as well. We typically do not do remote auditing and are on site for several weeks at a time. And like Brenda said, there's lots and lots of paperwork that we exchange and go through and review. So we want to thank the district for working with us so hard to get this audit completed all remote. And I especially want to thank Brenda, who was my rock in getting all the documents to us and just doing such an amazing job communicating and working through all of the technical issues of learning to do this in a remote environment. So to start off, we published 2 reports for the district. And the first one we're going to go over is the financial statement and federal grant compliance. We performed this audit for September 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2019. This is the first page of our financial statement and federal single audit report. And I want to draw your attention to a couple pages out of this report. The first is the schedule of findings and question costs. And this is really an overview of the results of our audit. So I'm going to briefly touch on these and go into more detail in a little bit. The first I'd like to communicate for the financial statements is that we issued an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on the district's financial statements in accordance with the regulatory basis of accounting. In addition, we noted no instances of non-compliance, no deficiencies reported as significant deficiencies, and no deficiencies to be reported as material weakness. Secondly, I'd like to point to our opinion on the identification of major programs. We reviewed 3 programs, well, 2. The Title I program and the Special Education Cluster, which has 2 separate CFDA numbers. We reported no findings, and we issued an unmodified opinion on the district's compliance with requirements for each of these major federal programs. I'd also draw your attention to the summary schedule of prior audit findings. In the school year 2018, the district received a finding for inadequate controls over suspension and debarment for the Title I grant program. And I'd like to point out that we have found in our audit that the status of this is fully corrected, and we agree with the district's assertion. In addition, the district in fiscal year 17 also received a finding for the same suspension and debarment. And we'd also like to point out that we have established that this is fully corrected. So just want to give kudos to the district for doing an amazing job in correcting the issues that had previously been reported as findings. Any questions so far? Perfect. The next page in this report I'd like to point out is our independent report on internal controls. And I'd just like to point to the main report that we issued an unmodified opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements. And this additionally speaks to that we did not identify any instances of internal control issues. In the report for compliance on each major federal program, as stated in the summary of finding the schedule of findings and question costs, again, our opinion is the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements for each of the major federal programs. In our report on the financial statements, I'd like to again draw your attention to the reports and our opinions. We are issuing an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. So this is the accounting practices prescribed by the school district accounting manual. However, we are also issuing a dual opinion, and so we are issuing an adverse opinion on the presentation of GAAP. And this is something that we issue in all modified accrual or cash basis entities. I don't know if we have new district council members or board members, but this is something that does not affect bond rating or anything. It just says that while the financial statements were not presented in accordance with GAAP, they are clean in accordance with the regulatory basis of accounting. We also included a matter of emphasis to, as discussed in note 14, to declare the state of emergency that happened in February 2020. And our opinion is not modified with respect to this matter. And the final section of the report I'd like to point out is the financial section. And this is listing all the financial statements that are included and to be issued with the report. Are there any questions on the financial single audit report? Perfect.
I don't see any, so go ahead.
We also issued an accountability report for the same school year of September 1st, 2018 to August 31st, 2019. And I'm going to go ahead and take you to the accountability report and specifically our audit results. So in the areas that we selected, we found that district operations complied in all material respects with the applicable laws, regulations, and policies, and the district provided adequate controls over the safeguarding of public resources. We don't examine every transaction, but we did find that there was material compliance. And I'd like to draw your attention to the areas that we reviewed. So the first off is we reviewed accounts payable, specifically reviewed general disbursement payments. So generally accounts payable transactions. We reviewed credit cards, and we also reviewed the district's procedures and policies for electronic funds transfers. We also reviewed the district's financial condition. We reviewed the use of restricted funds, specifically the new funds that the districts received in fiscal year 2019 for professional learning. We also reviewed the establishment of local and revenue expenditure accounts and compliance with ASB Club fund balance requirements. We did not have any management letters or findings, but we did issue some recommendations which we've discussed with management. We've also included in the report a request and signed management representation letter. And this is just a letter of representations made by the district documenting the accuracy of the financial statements. And it is included in the very next. Here's your representation letter. At the entrance, we estimated the audit cost to be approximately $40,200. And actual audit costs will approximate that amount, but be a little bit less than that. We did not anticipate, we included costs for travel, which we did not use at all as we did the whole thing virtual. So they will be a little less than that amount. The district's next scheduled audit is to be conducted in 2021, so not that far away. Sorry, Brenda. We will be including the accountability audit, We'll be conducting a financial statement audit and an audit of federal programs. Based on the estimated cost at current rates is estimated to be $39,500 plus some travel expenses. When the report is released, we will be issuing an audit survey. We do like to hear how we did. I believe that's going to go to you, Alex, and Brenda. It can be forwarded to anyone else that we worked with on the audit. We like to hear if there's things that we could do better. We also like to hear if we're doing a really good job. Also on the handout is a couple of links and introductions to other teams that SAO provides. The first is the local government support team, and they are responsible for a lot of your help desk questions, and they provide a lot of help and technical assistance. And then the Center for Government Innovation, and this is the team that provides a lot of checklists and how-to and best practices. And the final page is our list of contacts if there's any questions or concerns. Any questions?
Yes, I have one. This is Alex Apostle. For our audience, could you please define specifically what no findings means?
No findings means that the district did not have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies or any major non-compliance in their financial statements, federal grant audit, or accountability audit.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. In other words, they're doing a really good job with the areas that we reviewed, and their financial statements are materially correct. And we did not note any non-compliance in the federal funding.
Great. Thank you very much again.
And I would like maybe if you could talk a little bit about the role of the state auditors. Well, the role of their office. Their vision is to increase the trust in government. And this is allowing citizens some transparency into the operations of all public entities, but school districts. I thought maybe you could explain that a little bit.
Sure. So our purpose for each different kind of audit, for financial statements, it's really to review the financial statements and make sure they are supported and accurate, and that they compare and trace cash transactions to bank records or county treasurer statements. And then we issue an opinion to determine if they're fairly presented and are they presented the way they're supposed to, and are they materially correct? Our single audits review federal grants or programs that the district receives from the federal government, and we review those programs and how that money is being spent in accordance with compliance requirements set forth by the federal government. And accountability audits are designed to review different audit areas such as credit card transactions and reviewing them to make sure that the money is being spent on things for the district in accordance with district's own policies and according to state law.
And then because you do different programs, different types of audits every year over a span of time, you get to encompass a large majority of any entity's budgets, correct?
Yes. We also are a risk-based, we use a risk-based approach, which means we do several planning procedures by reviewing minutes, by reviewing financial trends, by reviewing payroll activity, and we identify the areas that are of highest risk, and those are the areas that we review that year. So yes, it does get to be a cycle, but it's also a risk-based approach that even if we did it last year, we can do it again if we feel that there is a high enough risk.
Okay. I have one last question, if you don't mind.
Please.
The next scheduled audit talks about accountability for public resources. Would
Yes.
that be tangible goods like, Chromebooks and other tangible items? Or is that monies more like the CARES money this year? Or does public resources encompass even, more than that? Or do you leave it more broad and decide what it is closer to the entrance of the next audit?
It's more the third. We leave it pretty broad, and it goes back to that risk-based approach. If we are seeing a lot of changes in how the Chromebooks are being used, that could be an area that we would select for testing. If we see that a lot of equipment was purchased, that can lead us to determine that that's an area we need to look at. I can tell you that the CARES Act is mostly federal funding, so that is going to probably, I can almost guarantee, going to fall under your federal grant compliance. And being as that is a new program for basically every government across the state, it is highly likely that that will be reviewed in the next audit. Carol, would you agree?
Oh, yeah, it definitely will be reviewed, yes.
And that's good to hear, because there's a lot of communication out there in the public for lots of different public entities concerned about how the CARES money is being spent or allocated. So that's good to hear that we'll be able to have some oversight and transparency for the public on that. So are there any other questions from other board members or comments? All righty. Seeing none. Did you ladies have anything else to conclude with?
Carol?
I just wanted to thank the district for working with us and making this, I know it took a little bit of time, but that's pretty much how we operate now. Things take a lot longer and it takes patience. And so we appreciate all of the patience on your side and the working with us so that we can get this audit completed. And just to reiterate, there is a lot of money that's coming out from the federal government, and that is one of the things as an office that we are very much aware, and we will be, we audit on behalf of the federal government, so I don't think we're gonna have a choice about if we're gonna audit, it's just how and how much.
Alrighty. And we thank you for your patience and guidance and in working with our district and our staff as well. So Dr. Apostle, did you have something?
No, I just appreciate the audit very much. It's very important that school districts operate within specific parameters and guidelines, and to find that we don't have any findings is a real credit to our budget department and Brenda and everyone, our principals, just everyone. But Brenda led the charge, and I appreciate her very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thanks, Carol.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much, Brenda.
See you in a couple of weeks, Brenda.
I do think so.
It'll feel like a couple of weeks.
I know it will.
It'll be a couple months, but it's not going to be long.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks, Carol. You're welcome.
Get them all congratulating themselves.
With that, we'll move on to item 4.02, recognition of September as being the month of the kindergartner. This was a project that some fifth graders worked on a few years back, and so it's kind of nice to see in this new online environment, we're still being able to recognize September as the month of the kindergartner. So
Get them all congratulating themselves.
who will take that one?
With that, we'll move on to
Yeah, Mary Ann may have a few things to say. Mary Ann?
I think so. Host, we have the ability to mute
I
748?
just did. They keep unmuting as fast as I mute them.
Okay. All right. All righty. We have Mary Ann presenting for this.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mary Ann.
Good evening, and as you know, September is the month of the kindergartner, and thank you to Mary Clift and her students at Bordeaux Elementary for making this possible. This was a multiple years. I think it took 3 years to get this on the books and recognized, and so I want to thank Mary Clift for all of her hard work. I would like Katie to share the exciting things we're doing here in the district to recognize the month of the kindergartner. Katie Diamond, are you with us tonight?
I am. Good evening. We've been doing a lot of fun things. Our elementary schools have been super involved. We've held some Facebook events. The district is holding an event and it is still going on until the end of September. If you want to get involved, all you have to do is share a picture of your kindergarten and share the hashtag month of K 2020, or you can share a picture of yourself as a kindergartner and use the hashtag SSD kindergarten throwback 2020. And you can find all these details on the district's Facebook. That's one of the events. The schools are each having their own Facebook events and sharing fun things on their social medias. We've done multiple shout outs on the reader boards and during robocalls. Lots of fun little things happening, just recognizing our kindergartners and how important they are and just setting them off on their educational journey.
I might add that this is a statewide celebration. So other school districts are involved in celebrating their kindergartners. And it's a real honor that for Mary Cliff and her kids that they were very persistent and consistent in terms of getting this passed through the legislature. Mary Cliff just didn't give up, and she made it happen, and we're very proud of her and her students that made this happen. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you, Dr. Apostle. Thank you, Mary Ann and Katie. We appreciate that update. That was a fun project to follow, and it just started out as, I think, just a basic component of the teacher's class, you know, a basic exercise.
That's true.
And it grew to be a statewide event. Any other questions or comments at this time from board members? Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. It's a very small consent agenda item. We have 3 items: proposed minutes, personnel report, and the general fund warrants. Have board members had a chance to review those? And do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any items for discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty, the consent agenda passes. So next we move on to the discussion and action items. This has been a topic that the board has wanted to bring forward tonight and devote the majority of the meeting to. We've had the start of school, and we knew there would be hiccups along the way. There would be things that we would have to resolve, and we're all in this together. And so we're not here to point fingers. We're not here to place blame. We're here to talk about what some of the issues are that have come up. How can we address them? Ones that are going to be a little more challenging to address, which ones are going to be easier and faster to work on. And so with that, we will proceed with the opening of the school report. And I will turn that over to, who wants to start off with that one? Maybe Kelly Neely or Dr. Apostle?
I'll take it first, if that's okay, Sandy.
Sounds great.
I just want to preface this report. I was in a ESD 113-114 superintendent's meeting this morning. And after listening to Superintendent Reichdahl discuss numerous issues involving public schools in the state of Washington, I must say that we've had our challenges, no question, but we are doing a very good job. We've had really a superb opening to our schools, and you'll hear more about that as we move through this report. But the report will focus on where we are in relation to these areas, where we are going, and the issues we are prepared to resolve as we move forward. So, and again, school districts throughout the state of Washington and throughout the country are experiencing a variety of challenges. And we have ours, there's no question. But overall, as you'll hear, we're moving forward and we're challenging various situations that we run into with all the enthusiasm and energy that we have. So on that, I would like to introduce Kelly Neely, who will talk to us about the K-12 instructional platform.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be coming at you again to let you know where we are with K-12, the platform, and how the kids are doing and how the teachers are doing. We have so many kids that are logged in. We get a daily report that tells us exactly who's logged in, who hasn't logged in, and then those numbers with the kids' names and when their last login was, go right back to the back to the teachers and back to the school so that they can have more contact and they can see, although they keep their own records, they can also see exactly what their numbers are for that day. So for instance, I know just off the top of my head, OMS was sitting at 8 kids who hadn't logged in the other day. And it goes straight down the list for them so that the principals and the teachers know. We still have a few kids that are having some login issues, mostly because if they don't keep their password, the password is stored completely by the company. So they have to go through the company to get that. However, we're getting a workaround and that should be, I was hoping for it by Monday, but we're still working on it. We had a couple errors in the report. So as soon as that comes up, we'll be able to do that ourselves. The teachers, they are at varying degrees of getting comfortable with the system. So secondary, and I think a lot of it is because, you know, the kids in secondary are a little bit more independent. They're moving along. They seem to be getting everybody going. I've heard some great reports about the curriculum and meeting the needs. Of course, there are some bumps along the way, but our teachers are just amazing. They've been really, you know, some people just take to the technology a little bit faster and they've been helping each other. They've been pairing together, which is awesome. Different departments are talking together, helping each other out. We have some amazing teachers that have been doing video, like little Loom videos that show each other tips and tricks, which has been awesome. And then, you know, the other grades are coming along too. Of course, elementary, where the littles are much more fragile learners. It is a big curve for everybody. Just being online is a big curve for the littles. The K2 group of kids, you know, trying to get a kindergartner up to the chair and to sit down and to get logged in. Always a fun challenge, but we're working our way through it. The teachers have reported, you know, a lot of fun with being able to, the kids talking and just seeing each other. So that's a good thing too. We are learning how to hide certain parts of the curriculum that are moving too fast or to slow it down. The pacing is always different. So we have gotten a few phone calls and a few emails from parents saying, you know, oh, this is just too much. You know, my student's spending this much time. And the first thing that I asked them to do is to go back and call the school and talk to the teachers. And oftentimes as teachers, we're in our own little world and we're not really sure what everybody else is assigning. So that's something that we're working through right now, which is, it happens face to face too, but in a remote world, when we're not running into each other in the copy room or in the halls, we're not really sure what we're assigning. So we're working through that piece. I wanted to share with you the teacher training and support that we've given. So our teachers had that initial dose of training. For some, it was not enough, and for some, it was overwhelming, just like anything else we would do. But what we have now, and I'm super excited about it, is K-12 has offered us a help room just for us. So there's a Zoom help room every day from 10:30. I want to say 10:30 to 1 or 10 to 1:30 for K-5. There's a separate room for that. Teachers can go to that Zoom room at any time and get immediate help. There's somebody in that help room for them, and teachers in 6 through 12 have another help room. So our staff and the administrators have used it. They go there. If it can be solved by the K-12 people, they help them through it immediately. There are some things that, oh, we don't have that capability, or that's a school issue, but it's always good to know there's always help available. Plus, our representative is holding Q&As with the staff. So all the staff, the principals need to do is set up a time for Susie to zoom in on them, and the staff can ask questions and get immediate answers. Another thing that we have done is we have another 2-hour training coming up. Each site is going to do their own training and set it up at the time that is just right for them. So I know a couple of sites have already secured that training and will be doing that. And then K-12 has also given us another bit of help with giving us a specialist just for elementary, which their platform at the elementary level is a little bit different than the secondary level. So that person is available to us that way. One of the other things that we have, and I'm really excited about this too, is K-12 has another program for EL students. And so we have just recently acquired, I think it is 55 seats for our newcomers, because they are obviously they're more fragile, and the English, any class that's done in English is not going to be of assistance to them. So we just got those and they're up and running. The company actually comped us some of those seats, which was nice. It was a good deal. Free is a very good price. So we're getting that going with our newcomers, OBJ, OMS, and the high school. And then one of the things that we also just found out, thanks to someone at Evergreen, is that there's a way on the Chromebooks to set it up so that everything that's in English turns to Spanish. So that's going to be of help to some of our teachers as well. One of the things that we are working on with the teachers, and we are giving more direction on this, is a lot of our parents are not home and are not able to do the full learning coach piece. That's a lot to ask. So the teachers are actually, during their live, there's transitioning over to this. So during their live, I am so sorry about the cat in the background. I don't know what to say about her. She wants out. During their live session, that's when they're going to go over the part when they're actually teaching that we would have been asking the learning coaches to do. So the parents aren't completely out of the question, but the teachers are taking on that piece and working through it in their live session. We do have a little bit of cleanup work to do on protocols. I want us to be a little bit more consistent with the protocols from school to school, but everybody does have a set daily schedule. They are supposed to be posting their live lessons on that when the kiddos pull it up. And then if there are issues, we've asked out of the question, but the teachers are taking on that piece and working through it in their live session. So we've asked the on protocols. I want us to be a little bit more.
Phone number ending in 3822. Can we ask you to raise your hand and save your question till the end of Kelly's explanation?
So we are working on the protocols. That are those are a couple of things that we've gotten back. So we are going to be working with the principals on Thursday. So we've asked the on protocols. I want us to be a little bit more. That is something that we will be working with the principals on Friday to make sure that we tighten that up a little bit from site to site. An example of that would be, is it okay for the kids not to turn their cameras on? Yes, it's okay. But we need to work that through with teachers, because different teachers have different philosophies. But as a district, we want to say, yes, it's perfectly okay that the kids don't turn their cameras on. There are some students that they don't want to share what's going on, and that's perfectly fine. So we just need to do a little bit more communication with our teachers and our staffs to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. You know, we want to assure the kiddos' privacy. We want to make sure that the family has their privacy. If the student is there and they're able to answer questions and talking, they're engaged. So we are going to count that as the engagement for the day. Those are just a few of the things that we're going to tighten up on. One of the things that we are flexible on, and we're going to continue to work with our staffs on this, is that we have to understand that not all kids can get on at the same time. And if they're not on at the same time, can they go on later to watch that asynchronous lesson? Yes, they can. If you run as a parent or community member, if you run up against that and that isn't the case, please communicate back to your school, communicate to the parents, to the teachers, because that is a promise that we have made, and we're going to stick to it, that we have the asynchronous learning for when there is help or needed help. One of the other things that we have that we're about to do, and we'll be talking about this under special circumstances, but we are starting to bring small groups of kids into the school. And Chelsea Brady will talk about how they've gone about that a little bit later, but we definitely are working on that. We're having fewer and fewer connectivity issues as well as Glenn and his team gets out there. We're getting those hot spots where they're supposed to be. One of the things that we're working on, and I'm so sorry, it seems like I'm talking so fast, but we have so much to share. One of the things that I'm really excited about is we are sending somebody out next week to the Skokomish tribe and helping some of the folks out there in that community just learn how to get the computers up and get them logged on and all of that. We'll also be doing that with the Squaxin. So we want to be able to provide in person when we can. We just have to be very, very careful about it. Sending somebody out there to work with, 3 or 4 families at a time, one child at a time is how we're tackling it. So I know that's a lot, but we've had a lot happen in the last 2 weeks since we last talked.
Start with, are there questions or comments from board members for Kelly Neely?
Lynn.
Yes, thank you. Kelly, that was excellent. Thank you. You covered a lot of the questions that I've been receiving from parents and that I've had myself. I do still have a couple questions, and I think the first one has to do with having some consistent standards, throughout the district. And I think you hit the nail on the head just saying that as teachers, we may not be aware of what other teachers are doing and some of that. So I guess I have a 2-part question. One is, are those standards going to be coming across the district, or will that be something that each school or each grade level decides on what those standards are? And then how comprehensive are those standards? I mean, even just since I had emailed you some of the questions I had before, I've heard, additional things that where maybe teachers aren't doing their cameras, and is that okay? Or, some people aren't doing live lessons and some people are, and, sometimes teachers are available and sometimes they're not. I think those are the kinds of frustrations that families are having because they'll have multiple teachers possibly, and they're seeing kind of these inconsistencies. And I think even our teachers would probably really appreciate saying, here's what our expectation is. So I guess that's one of my questions.
I can totally answer that, Lynn. Actually, because of your email that came across, I was thinking, wow, I need to be a little bit clearer because there are some inconsistencies. Starting of the years has been stressful on everyone. And so even though something might have been said a couple of times, I really think it's time to revisit. We kind of like to go about things as in tight and loose. So the things that are tight are the things that are required, and the things that are loose are what the buildings can decide for themselves. An example, like I just said, was one of the things that is tight, and I need to reiterate that, is kids don't need to turn their cameras on. If they don't want to turn their cameras on, they don't need to. One of the other tight things would be teachers do need to. The kids need to have that interaction with them. Another tight thing for us is that we are supposed to be doing live lessons. Now, what's loose is how many times in a week that you're going to do that. But it is expected within the week that you get a few live lessons in. That's where the teaching happens. And so we really need to reiterate that. I think some of the inconsistencies that folks are seeing now are teachers and our own comfort levels with technology. So if it were me, as I'm learning, I might have not been so comfortable in the beginning to do that live lesson and make it so vulnerable, because you are vulnerable when you do that. But now that we're moving along and I'm feeling more comfortable with it, you may see more. So I am going to be working with the principals on Thursday to talk about some of the parameters of this, to make sure that we do have like an even playing field across the district. It's one of the reasons we went to this platform, is so that we could have an even playing field across the district. So that's where we are with that.
Thanks. And I think that was a good point too, just that, you know, they're having an enterprise-wide system. I mean, it's a huge undertaking for an organization our size, and it's something that normally takes, you know, multiple years to plan and implement. So I totally have empathy for all of you who are trying to adapt to this new system. And so my questions are definitely not critical, but more trying to help families understand where we're at, and then be very clear about what we're doing. So my next question is on the parent coaching, and I'm happy to hear that teachers are going to be taking over a portion of that. But I think my bigger question is, is that a requirement? I mean, why are we requiring that at all? Can we simply not get around it with this K-12 platform? Are we, I guess I'm saying, are we trying to adapt to a software when ultimately shouldn't that be our responsibility to play that role? And is there any way that the teacher could be that parent coach? Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. And as we've started out on this, it's become more and more evident. We knew that we were going to have some struggles with this, but it's become more and more evident to us just how much that is, and then how we can work around it. So you're right. When I look at it as the coach part, that is the teacher part. So if somebody were using this program at home completely by themselves, it's a homeschool, then yeah, the teacher or the coach is the parent, right? But now that we're here, and this actually plays out mostly at elementary, there's very little interaction as you go up. But at elementary, we're really starting to correct that piece. We don't have to have that piece. You can't completely turn it off, but we can say, this is here just to support you if you want to go through this and read, what you can do to support your child, but you don't have to do that. The teachers and they're learning. This is new for them too. So just like you said, it usually takes months to get these types of things up and running. Our teachers are doing an amazing job building it as we're flying. And, that's through no fault of anybody else's. We were on a short time frame because the county came. We made the decision after agonizing over it not to come back in person. And then it was a board meeting to accept our plan, a tight turnaround with getting the contract, and we were off and flying. So I have to give kudos to the parents, to the teachers, to the kiddos that are out there, to the board, to everybody for honestly hanging in there and really going through this process of learning it all at the same time. We are in the process right now of the issues that come up are not the huge issues anymore. We're just picking them off one by one now. Like, oh, that button doesn't work. Well, let's see what we can do about that. Oh, this mama forgot the login. Let's see what we can do about that. And I know where everybody's coming from. I can feel the panic. My kiddo's losing a day. They're losing a day. We're okay. We've got you. The kids, we're going to come through this okay. It's just a process of figuring out exactly what works for us. And like you said, we're not trying to make ourselves fit the software or the program. We're making the program fit us. And so that is a learning process as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Questions or comments from another board member?
Yeah, I have a question. What I'm hearing, so let me know if I'm not hearing this right. That there's the video contact, the with the younger students. Well, I'm getting questions from parents, mostly from different areas, but some of the biggest concerns from the high school level. In that they're getting lots of assignments, but the teaching isn't happening. So here, just do these. And so they don't know how to do it. They're falling behind. They're getting panicky. So, and I am getting that from students, from parents, and from staff at the high school. So, to me, that is when you're talking about the high school students, they are panicky. They don't have a lot of time. I mean, every single one of our students counts, and every single piece and stepping block along the way matters a lot. But when you get to the high school, they have no more time to make this up later. They've got to get their credits. And if they're falling, I've heard a scenario where there's 46 students in a group, and probably only 6 of them are on. They've got everything going. They're up to date. The rest of them are all behind, and they're panicking. They're saying they're getting so many assignments on Friday, and they're due on Monday, and they don't have anybody to ask or help. And they feel that they're getting assignments here, just do this. No teaching is happening from the teachers themselves. So, and again, that's just that's panic talk I'm hearing from some parents and students, and some staff. So I'm really concerned about high school students and them falling behind. And also I've heard comments going, why do we have this many classes, and why do we have them every single day? It's just undaunting in this kind of a circumstance to keep up on that much every day. A student that really is an introvert, has no interest in the arts, is put into that for an elective, and not into the sciences that she really wanted. So how do we make this positive as we can?
So
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Sally. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I know. It's just, of course, I have heard people say, like I heard earlier, people say, oh, to get the kindergartners going and this and that. Well, yesterday it was a kindergartner I saw, and I said to the mom, and she, and she's just loving it. She has having a ball at it, And so everybody does have different experiences, and there are some great things going. I'm just, my biggest concern right now is that highest level, where they don't have the time. And it is an accountability thing. It is who's going to suffer if we're not making the changes that we need quickly enough to capture and recapture the time on task and the credits that they need to accrue.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sally. I'm so sorry about that.
You're fine.
So I know the groups that you're talking about right now. I will say that I'm working closely with the paratechs to make sure that they've got all of their things up and running, so it's easier for them to check in on the students as well. So they have those folks around them. And as I said earlier, if you're hearing specific things about not having live lessons, somebody has to know so that we can address it. So if you're a parent and you're really having issues and they're not having live lessons, you've talked to the teacher, please talk to one of the principals or talk to one of us. I like to say the principals first. so that we can actually track that down. But I would, Bruce, are you here?
Yes, he's here.
Bruce?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you want to talk for just a little bit about what you guys, because at the high school, Sally, I think you'll be really impressed on how they are tracking down each student and trying to make those connections. Bruce, do you mind?
No, that's fine. Good morning, Madam President, members of the board. In dealing with the high school curriculum, one thing that, and I'd like to kind of address some of the concerns that have been expressed, because I'm getting emails also and trying to communicate with families as much as we can. So one of the things, we actually started this conversation with the department chairs regarding how much work is being given to students. And one of the things that in teachers talking to families, one of the things we're finding out is that the way K-12 has it set up, a student will go into their class and their announcements will show they have 10 tasks to do. And immediately the student goes, oh my gosh, there's 10 tasks, there's 10 assignments. I can't possibly do 10 assignments in every class. But what happens with K-12 is each component of the lesson is listed as a task. So here's a typical breakdown for a math class. So the student would open his calendar in the class and it would say he has 10 tasks. So one of those tasks is just the objectives page. It lists the objectives. There's no work on that page. The next task is a 2-minute video that introduces the topic and is an instructional video. And then after that 2-minute video, there's pages of notes that are already in there for the student. So it gives them assistance in when they're going to be doing the real assignment. Then the fourth task, it gives examples of how to do the problems. And then the fifth task is more notes that's provided to the student so they can see how the examples were done if they didn't understand them. Then the next page, the sixth page, is is another set of examples. And then there is another 5-minute video after that, which is an instructional video, again, showing how to work the problems and explaining how they're worked out. The eighth task would be guided practice. So it actually guides the student through how to do these problems. The ninth page or the ninth task would be a summary page that summarizes everything they've seen so far. And then the 10th task is actually the assignment. So when a student sees there's 10 tasks, often they're shutting down at that point. And what we're noticing is they're logging off. They're not going into each task to see what's required. So we're trying to explain that to parents, that when they see that there's 10 tasks, it doesn't mean that there's 10 assignments or there's 10 things they have to do. The way we have our bell schedule set up is that we have priority days. We don't want the students to get overwhelmed on any one particular day with having 5 live lessons, so to speak. So we have priority days that Monday through Thursday, there are 2 to 3 departments each day that's their priority day, and that's when they do their live lessons. So a student knows I'm only going to have 2, maybe 3 live lessons in any one particular day. We also have advisory set up 4 days a week so that during advisory period, if there's not some curriculum that's being pushed out, for instance, the high school and beyond plan, if we're not doing anything in particular that day, the advisory period, all teachers are available for academic assistance. So a student can drop into any one of their teachers during the advisory period, Monday through Thursday, to get additional help. And then we also have priority days set up on the advisory days. So for instance, like Monday, I don't have them memorized, but Monday might be social studies and foreign language, so that students know that those teachers are particularly aware that on those days they need to be available. But every day teachers are available. The other thing also is the way it's set up is that it's almost thinking of it as flipping the classroom. By providing instructional videos, K-12 has allowed the teachers to be available during class time to help students. So instead of taking all 5 periods, all 5 days a week and having direct instruction, then the students would be home with no help, because after school, they wouldn't be able to contact anybody. This way they can watch the videos and they can contact their teachers during the actual class period. Teachers have open Zoom, connect sessions, which is like Zoom, and students can drop in to ask their questions during the assigned class period. So in this model being online, it seems to make more sense to have teachers available for assistance more often than not during the class period.
Thanks, Bruce. I really appreciate it. Sally, one of the other things too that you asked about is, why kids have the 5 classes. If we don't have that many credits for those kids going through, they won't be on track to graduate. So we're trying our very best, not to overload, but at the same time to try to keep them on track. Last spring, we allowed students to only take, the 2 or 3 classes, which we just can't afford to do, or they won't have enough credits.
So, so when you talk about the teachers being available during class time, well, is that class time also when the students are on that K-12?
It depends. What we're finding out with a lot of our high school students is they have younger siblings in the house.
Yeah.
So during the school day, like in the mornings in particular, students are, the younger students are on at home on their classes, and sometimes the high school student has to access K-12 after hours. We're currently working on how do we provide support after hours.
So they might or might not be available.
Well, the teachers are available, yes, during the day.
But not available when kids need them because.
Correct. Some of our students are having to access it on nights and weekends. And we're currently, I have some ideas. I just don't know what I can do as far as the MOUs allowed.
So when the kids are going through a lesson, as you said, the process, read something, watch a video, read something, watch a video, here's your assignment. And the student is lost, has a question, but there's no immediate help.
Correct. Currently there's no assistance outside of the school day, correct?
Or during the school day, maybe.
No, there is during the school day, yes. Absolutely.
How do they do that? How many students then are assigned? What is the periods of time that the teachers have to meet with those students individually? If you have 30 kids, I mean, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Many times many of our students aren't needing assistance. Many of our students are finding their way through this okay. The ones that do need assistance, teachers are doing several things. One is they're going into breakout rooms and having small groups of students. So they might have 4 or 5 students with the same need that are having the same problem. So they'll put them in one breakout room, help them for a while, then they go to another breakout room with another small group of students. So it doesn't necessarily happen one-on-one individually. It could, depending on how many students are logging in to get help. But I can assure you, Sally, that our bell schedule, each class is 61 minutes long, Monday through Thursday, and it's a little bit shorter than that on Fridays because we have PLC time. But every teacher is available during the scheduled class period.
The next thing too that thank you, Bruce, that I would want everyone to be aware of is we're moving into the next phase where we'll be setting up some folks who are able to do some nighttime, maybe an hour of help in math, an hour of help in social studies or language arts, so that parents can call in. They may not get the very specific, but they can get some actual help. Mostly, I think when I think of it, I think of help in math or science. Those are the places a lot of times that kids will have a stumbling block and they just need a little bit of help. So that is our next phase, is to be able to provide a few hours each week for some sort of nighttime help kind of session.
So systemically, is there a way for us to find out what that need is? because the teachers might be available during the school day, but the students can't access the programs or anything during that school day because of the, you have 5 kids in your home and you have 3 computers and or whatever. So is there systemically, is there a way to get this information so we can really get a handle on the supports that are needed?
Sure. One of the things, since we've been up and running pretty solidly for now about 2 weeks, we're starting to ferret that out, Sally, to see exactly what it is we need. And then I know I hate to over survey people, but I would kind of like to put a survey out there to see exactly, what specific help do you need? What area do you need it in? And what times seem to be the best? So then we can at least have a place to go with that. And yeah, I hate to over survey, but if we want to know, that's the only way to get the answer.
Hey, Kelly, real quick, Sally, one thing we are doing is I really have to give the assistant principals a lot of credit, because on a daily basis, they're in contact with families that are, one, having trouble logging in, having connectivity issues. They're constantly in contact with those parents, trying to figure out how we can assist them. The other thing is the tech department has been awesome providing hotspots. We're almost to 100 hotspots at the high school that, and for the most part, they're working. Obviously, the more students you have in the house, the more devices you try to run on it. But we have close to 100 families that did not have connectivity in August, and now they have connectivity in September. The other thing is we're working with a group called Math Motivators. June Doomer, one of our assistant principals, has been working closely with them, and that group would provide math tutoring both during and after school hours. And that would be virtual, online, like face-to-face, you can think of it like face-to-face online tutoring, where there would be somebody, a live person working with a student or a group of students.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you very much. Any other school board members with questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question, Sandy. So Kelly, can you give us a little bit more information about the before school training that teachers received before we launched this? I remember that originally we were talking that they would get a whole day of training. Can you maybe fill us in a little bit on how that went and how much training they received?
Sure, Sally. We had 3 hours of training. And I'm kind of glad that we didn't do more, because we had several who were overwhelmed at that time, that it was just too much. Again, we had some that didn't know, or didn't know, they wanted more. It was just an overview and how to get into your account, what it looks like, what the kiddos account looks like. We put out some demo accounts for them. It's always really hard to tell. We couldn't, it wasn't the time yet to get into the part where you show them how to hide assignments, how to upload different assignments. They weren't into the system yet. So now that that's done, now we're providing that additional help. We have a couple of teachers that I've used in the district too, to do Zoom meetings, like Zoom workshops with different staffs around the district. And like I said, a few teachers at the high school too have been making Loom videos to show them how to do things like impersonating a student, so they can get in and see exactly what the student is seeing, teaching them how to hide lessons, how to pace things out differently. So I view it as more of an ongoing process with them. And I'm fully aware that some of our folks did not feel like they had enough at the beginning. But again, I've also heard from some that are overwhelmed. So I just tried to hit the middle of the road with that one.
All right, thank you. And that would be one of my big concerns, just from having experience with online schooling, that having a really successful program often goes back to not only the online school, but also how comfortable and and trained and educated the teachers are. We really have fabulous teachers in our district, and giving them the best tools possible, which includes really exceptional, as you know, professional development, and especially in this new program, I think would be super key to having a program that's going to be successful for our students and families. So I'm glad to hear that we are moving towards more professional development, and it's going to be more specific. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, what I've done, Sally, is I have asked them specifically to work with their lead team and to decide what they want the training to be that day, because different staffs are at different places. What the elementary wants is totally different from what the high school needs right now. And so, and what maybe Bordeaux needs is different from Mountain View. Some of the things are the same and we're sharing back and forth, but some of them are completely different. They're at different spots. So they are going to get together with our person from K-12. They get to pick the date, and all I need to do is approve it. As long as that is what the group wants and needs and feels is appropriate at that time. And we're going to continue it. This is not something that is like a one and done at all, because every time we turn around, we find out there's something new and really cool actually in the system that we didn't know that it could do, but you can't tell people the 500 things in the beginning, they'll never remember them. So as they come up, we're like, oh, hey, that's really cool. Did you know that it can read it to you? Here's where you go for that. Did you know that you could set the pace at a different level? Here's where you go for that. So as that comes up, that's why I really like the Q&A periods too, because some of it's super easy just to say, oh, did you know that if you're looking at your class list and there's a little eyeball by the kid's name, that means they've opened up a different browser and aren't paying attention to what you're doing? You know, little simple things like that are starting to make a big difference. It's just the right training at the right time is what we're looking for.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Sally. Carrie, do you have something you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I do. And I don't know if this is the right place for it, because maybe we'll get to it later on. But just as we do look to potentially going to hybrid situations, would we continue utilizing K-12, or how is that transition with, you know, if some people are in person, will they be utilizing K-12? Will that just be relegated to people that are doing it online only? I guess, what is the ebb and flow of that if we have to pull back and have everybody, of course, be online? You know, how do we keep some continuity with what they're learning?
So that's a really good question, Carrie. As we move, it's a huge concern of mine too. As we move through things, you know, we're seeing it all over the news right now where people have gone back and then they're back down again. And we have to be able to respond to that quickly. So we are going to continue with the K-12. Now that doesn't mean that when we're in person that we're not doing a lot of different modifications and more in-person things that you can't do through the system. But we're still going to keep that as the backbone, because if we do go down again, if we shut down, if we have to do a rolling thing where a school is out, we have to be able to go back to online without a waste of a day. And so if we're all there, we're still about the same place, we go down, it's so much easier just to go right back into the K-12 system. Especially even if we're doing hybrid, the kids are supposed to be at home 2 of the days doing online instruction while the teacher's working. So this is a perfect program for that. We don't quite realize it yet, but we will when we get there someday, where half the kids are at home and we have half the kids at school. This system can continue with those kids at home doing all of those assignments and things while the other kids are at school getting that in-person instruction. Now, if we sometime during this year and we get really comfortable and it looks like we're all back full time and there's COVID's not really rearing its ugly head, then we can talk about moving away from it. But for right now, we will stick to this.
Thank you, Kelly. That helps quite a bit. And I will just say, I mean, for me and my personal experience, and I know that it is different for, I'm not seeing elementary age kids. My 2 daughters, one's OMS, one is OBJH, and those 2 schools have both done an excellent job. And I'm able to work flexibly. So I have been home to watch their lessons quite a bit, and they are getting live in-person instruction. They are doing breakout rooms. They are having the teacher hang that whole, hour or 45 minutes to answer questions after getting instruction, after looking at an assignment. I've seen advisory teachers be very creative at, trying to get to know their students. So, one of my daughters logs in at 7:55 a.m., takes several breaks throughout the day, but is done around 2:30. So it is like a regular school day. And I wondered how that was actually going to go. And again, mine are middle school age. So they are capable of getting on that. I'm not having to be a coach other than trying to help them with math, which I'm not very successful with sometimes, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, I've been very impressed with how they've been able to keep up with their schedule. And I think that's because their school day has kept to a very set schedule. They know what to rely on. It is fairly similar. So, and I will also say that I have had, I definitely am getting emails about concerns with whether it's the curriculum being appropriate for the grade level, and this is at the elementary age, or technology issues. And I know there's a learning curve that goes along with that. But I am also hearing from some people, that having a platform that does have the curriculum allows them to be able to connect with their kids in the classroom, versus I do have friends that teach in other school districts where they are having to create their curriculum. That is another exhausting task because they are very busy trying to do that and then teach it and also try to connect with their kids versus having something that is there. So I am glad that we have a common platform. I know that it's not perfect. And I get the messages from OMS and OBGH constantly asking for feedback and ways that they can refine it for families. So I'm happy to hear that that is happening at other schools and just across district wide, because we are, I think, 13 days into this. So people are going to continue to get more comfortable with it, and find ways to improve it. And hopefully we can continue to do that so that our students can benefit from that.
Terry, can I just hop on that too? I really appreciate that. We have heard a lot of positive things, but we want to respond to the issues that are burning for folks, and we're really trying. But one of the things that was brought to my attention this week by a teacher at the high school is other platforms like Google Classroom, Zoom, all of that, they're having security issues, which we have not had yet either. So it's really important that we keep the privacy of our students, at the center of things too. And we haven't had any hackers breaking into our K-12 accounts or anything like that. So there are some really good moving parts to it. And yes, I am looking into that, Carrie, is this an okay kind of topic for first graders? So I'm on it. Every time something like that comes up, we investigate it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to add a couple of other questions and comments as well. Thank you for the clarity. There's been, a lot of confusion about the camera and who was required to have it on, who is not. So it's good to know that teachers should have the camera on, and it's good for certain families that we're concerned about. They have the option to not have the camera on from home. So that's very good. There's also seems to be confusion about packets or textbook materials, whether or not things were going to go home with some students. So where are we with, those kinds of things, whether it's a student that is learning all that way or supplementing K-12 with that?
So it's kind of school by school, class by class, kiddo by kiddo, Sandy. Some students really do need to come in and get that extra help. We're going to talk about it here in just a little bit when we talk about exceptional cases and supporting kids who have different issues. So the kids who are having a really hard time connecting, like they have zero connectivity, they're on the list to come in. And we've actually started that at a few of the schools, and we'll be doing that next week too. We kind of hesitate just to go to packets, because if you go straight up to packets, then there's no instruction happening. You're just giving the assignments. So we're working on around that to be able to bring those kids in and give that extra support to them. But there are a couple of exceptional cases where we have run off some things that's a better learning style for some students. Some of our kiddos that have IEPs in certain areas, they need accommodations too. So we've been working on that. It's honestly a student by student situation.
Sandy, you're muted.
Thank you very much. Another concern that I've heard multiple times, people waiting to get into their classroom, and, you know, maybe this is more a technology question, you know, is that, do we have a sense of why that's happening? Is that a technology thing? Is that a training thing? Where's the misunderstanding in getting all students into all of their classes?
So
every time.
Thank you, Sandy. That has come up several times. It's twofold. The first thing is parents who have set up their accounts, like we all do. You set up your account and you think you're going to remember your password and you don't. And so we don't automatically have them at the school. They have to go through the company as it sets right now. But the company has really worked with us to have a workaround for that. So we should be getting anytime now a list of all of the logins and the ability to change the students' passwords. We can't give them the password, but we can change the password for them, which is just as good. So that will help. That will take care of 90% of the problems. The other issue is just in learning the system as far as having the classes. So the registrars have been awesome learning this on such a short amount of time, but they have to register them in a very particular manner. So sometimes we're off by one, we've pushed the wrong thing, and the class disappears for the kiddo. But we are seeing very little of that now. We still have a few issues here and there, but we are totally working through that. And we hurry just as quickly as we can, of course, if it's a glitch, to make sure that that class is reassigned again to the student. So for instance, there are, I want to say probably at least 6 or 7 just freshman English classes alone. And if you aren't assigned to the right one with the right 20-digit serial number, we get the wrong one. But we are working so hard to make sure that that doesn't happen.
I appreciate also that you know, clarifying that everybody should have a set schedule, because there does seem to be confusion out there. People aren't aware that there is a set schedule for their student, or somehow they're missing it. So we need to really reemphasize that. And of course, the recorded live sessions, there's been lots of confusion about that from parents, whether, you know, some think it exists, some don't. So we want to be clear on that. I'm glad to hear about the EL module for our newcomers. That is also addressing a concern that a lot of people have voiced. What about the opportunity for, you know, our teachers are going to get another round of training, because there is this information overload when you do it at first. Will we have another opportunity for parents to also get trained again, and maybe you know, now that they've been in it for a couple of weeks with their student, or whoever the learning coach is, to you know, have another training opportunity sometime, because they'll learn and absorb more this time than they did the last time.
Yeah, that's on our list. It's one of the top priorities. But right now, my #1 priority is putting all of the assistants into getting those last bit of kids up and running, and getting the parents comfortable with just learning how to turn on the Chromebook and things like that. So, you know, it's hard to Zoom with those people to explain how to do things when they don't know how to turn on the computer. And I'm not being silly about it either. I mean, it's honestly, I don't work on a Chromebook very often either. And the first time I open them, I'm like, where's the button? So that really is our first priority right now. As soon as we get through that, then we will be offering some more things. Each school is really working on it. Like, I know Evergreen is looking at some different ways to get language support in there for helping with those tech issues too. and then being able to settle down and actually look at some of the curriculum is next up.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions or comments on the K-12 and the teacher training from other board members?
I'm just really glad to hear that there's this capability on this platform to push a button and have it translated into Spanish. And those are, I mean, so we really need to investigate this tool that we're using to find all those capabilities that can support our kids. Because, you know, that one was huge. And so it's great to hear that that's known now and it's being utilized. And I know it's a learning thing and it's, you know, but everything that we can get out of this system to help our kids, whichever way. Yeah. So just thank you for all your work.
Thank you very much. With that being said, we do have, I see there are two raised hands, at least two raised hands in our participant list. My question might be to the board, if the raised hands have general questions, would it be permissible to have them ask them during this time? I might suggest that if they are private questions or personal questions about their individual student or their individual case, perhaps they might send the appropriate staff an email so that those can be addressed. If they'd like to, they can CC the board. Would the board allow for general questions from participants? Asking the board for an opinion before I call, or before I ask the host to call. Ask the host whether or not we should call. I can see Lynn, that's the only one I see at the moment. Okay, nobody has an issue with it? Or should we?
Well, Sandy, I mean, I always want the public to be able to ask questions. I'm just wondering, we have a number of things on the list, and if we get through people's reports on them, that might answer some people's questions or even generate some questions.
Absolutely.
And be, you know, in the appropriate community comment. I hesitate to change our agenda.
And we also can advise people that we will have a community forum and they can bring forth questions. That's not a school board meeting. That's more of a direct Q&A, question and answer period. And that might be a more appropriate time for those. So we appreciate those people that have been, you know, hanging on and listening. And I think that's a wise request from the board members.
I have comments.
To go ahead and continue on with the rest of the agenda, and perhaps we'll answer your
There's a lot of parents here with questions.
Again, we'll go through the agenda as it is and see if that will answer your questions. Please keep track. And like I said, there'll be the community forum next week, and you're always
I have questions.
to send an email. And let's go through with
Why do the parents get ignored every board meeting we have?
This is the board's meeting, and that's why the community forum is so important. It is not a board meeting, and so it is a...
I have questions. I'm not being heard.
At this time, we'll go ahead and move on to the technology section and see what are we learning in that arena.
It's not working.
The individuals that keep interrupting the meeting, please cease and desist or I will kick you out of the meeting. This is a board meeting.
Go ahead and kick us out because this is not going to stop.
All right.
Sandy, are you ready for technology?
Yes, we are ready for technology. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, Glenn's with me here. I'm going to just start and give an introduction of a few things our tech department has been working on, and then I'm going to turn it over to Glenn Shorten, our IT operations manager, and he'll give you some more detail on the workings of what's happening. As you know, when we shut down on March 13th, we went to an online platform. So the tech department was busy handing out Chromebooks to families. We all had different, I was even there with them handing out Chromebooks on some evenings and during the days. So we could try to get as much technology out to the kids as we could. Since then, we're still handing out Chromebooks and replacing Chromebooks and providing assistance. We have a call-in line that you can call in for support. We also have an email address. It's chromebooks@sheltonschools.org that you can write an email, and one of our techs will get back to you with assistance. Some of the other items we've been working on, we've been ordering hotspots from T-Mobile and Verizon Wireless to get out to the families. Glenn will talk more about that. And we have webcams that we've installed for every teacher, so that way they have the camera to do their instruction. So Glenn, I'm going to turn it over to you for all the specifics now. Where'd it go?
There we go. I don't know what happened to me. Some of the yes, I know. So some of the stats since August, we have checked out now 1,208 Chromebooks. So we checked out somewhere around 2,400 last year. So we basically added another 50% of the Chromebooks that we have currently checked out. Hotspots, we've already checked out 300 hotspots. When we first checked those out, we were going for ones that had good receptions, excellent receptions for T-Mobile, and we also targeted homes that have multiple students. That way we can get the most students connected for each one of the hotspots. Since then, we've been slowing down. We've been going to fair connections. We've also been hitting single homes. So currently right now, though, the total number of students being impacted by hotspots are 600 students have a hotspot at their address. So we keep getting more and more of those things. So we have more coming in this week. Where we're going is that T-Mobile doesn't work everywhere. And so we have ordered some Verizon hotspots now. In fact, one of the locations I was at today was out at the Shelton Valley Daycare, and T-Mobile just doesn't even connect out there. I fired up my Verizon cell phone, and I was pulling down somewhere around 50 megabits per second with my Verizon connection. So we're going to be hitting those families that the T-Mobile hotspot doesn't work at and getting them going with a Verizon hotspot, hopefully. The other thing is, as I think it was Bruce was commenting, there are families or addresses, not necessarily families, but addresses where we have multiple students. And it depends on where you're at. If you're in a good connected area, you can probably run quite a few students off of one hotspot. But if you're on a fair connection and you're trying to run 2 or 3, then you're going to run into issues. So it's not just number of students at an address, but it's also their connectivity and what their cellular strength is there. So we're going to be taking a look at those and addressing those issues. I talked a little bit about daycare. That one where the T-Mobile didn't work, we actually worked with the adjoining church there. We're able to, they ran a network cable for us that is now connected up to their DSL. And we used one of our private personal modems. Thank you, Bob. And we got that daycare up and running today. It's not a really quick connection, but we do have a connection there, which is more than they had previously. And our building techs, I've got to say, our building tech staff are doing an amazing job. They are going out and they're doing things they haven't done before. This morning I asked them, what are you spending most of your time at? And almost all of them said, we're working with families and with students and making sure that they have the devices they need, troubleshooting any questions or problems that they are encountering. If there's something wrong with the Chromebook, then they meet with them and swap it out or repair that for them. We've had parents that bring in hotspots in the Chromebooks together and say, well, okay, how do I get these things connected? And what's the issue here? So they're doing all sorts of things, and I really got to take my hat off to them because they are doing an excellent job out there. So that's kind of what we've been working with. Brenda mentioned the web cameras we ordered, or we had web cameras for all of our classrooms. We had to order additional ones for other spots besides just their classroom teachers that are also getting involved and needing to do video conferencing. So we're also deploying those at this point. Yeah.
I'd like to also add that you were working with PUD on hotspots because PUD was installing hotspots all around the county. So they actually worked with Glenn and a couple of the tech guys on what schools we needed additional hotspots out in our parking lots, and they came and installed those too. So that was a great thing to assist our families. So.
And great information about the difference between a T-Mobile hotspot and a Verizon hotspot.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I got it. Stacy just poked her head in there, so I've got to share with her. Hi, Stacy. One of her students was actually a student that is living in a tent, and they're going, "Can I have a hotspot?" And I'm like, "Well, do you have a power supply?" Well, we've got a generator, and so that student is using a Chromebook and a hotspot and doing his schooling from a tent. So that's pretty awesome.
That is very good. Questions and comments from other board members? Lynn, go ahead.
Thanks, Glenn and Brenda. One question I have, and it's probably with my PUD hat on, just that with those hotspots, the fixed hotspots, we've heard a lot of concerns with parents saying, I can't keep my kid in a car for 5 hours, which was never really the intention of those hotspots. So I guess my question is, does the Chromebook or K-12 allow the students to download the assignments, download the live lessons, and go back home to finish that homework? Or are we really expecting families to sit at hotspots?
So that is a Kelly question, I think, because it's a K-12. Glenn, do you agree or no?
Well, I can probably address
Okay.
it. Most of it is an online curriculum, so you can't really download it and work with it because it is interactive.
Okay, and then yeah, that was my main question. Thanks.
I think though too, Lynn, the families actually, the hotspots that we're giving out are hotspots for the people at their homes. So I'm hoping that there aren't a whole lot left that are having a hard time and have to go, I'm sorry about the cat, go to a hotspot and sit and do that, because that nobody needs that, So as we find out that where the hotspots are needed and the ones that we can find, that's more of the option that we want, is a hotspot for the family, so they don't have to drive somewhere and sit for hours. That's not.
Yeah, I think that maybe that's a message that can get out to our teachers who are seeing the kids sitting in cars and saying, if you're having issues with being connected, please reach out to us. We have these hotspots available, because
Excuse me?
I agree that this isn't going to happen during, winter times. We really don't we really don't want our students sitting in cars, I guess,
Excuse me.
Lynn, I think the principals have been trying to reach out to the families and students. We have a very large spreadsheet that Glenn's been tracking students by family and stuff. So hopefully they're getting out to everybody that is in need, but we definitely can keep that message going.
Thank you.
And I hear the number of 600 hotspots. I think that's quite a bit up from our initial order even. So I think we've already reordered at least a couple of times.
Yeah, so it's 300 hotspots, but we have 600 students connected to those hotspots.
Ah, okay. Very good. Questions or comments from other board members? Okay. I was pleased to hear about the student impersonation that you guys were working around for the K-12 platform, because I know that was another issue in trying to help families through. Teachers or people couldn't see what the student was seeing. So that's a good technology piece too. So any other questions or comments before we move on to communications? Okay. Thank you very much, Glenn and Brenda, and we'll move on to communications. Thank you, Katie.
evening. So I'm here to present on the district communications tonight. We've had so many challenges and so many different things changing in our district and almost daily. So we're working hard to make sure all of our families and community stakeholders are in the know about what is going on in our district. Currently, we are sending out emails, we send out phone calls, text messages, we use our website, we have social media, which includes Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We have newsletters mailed home multiple times a year. We have an electronic community link, which is our electronic newsletter. We've sent out surveys to family. We use our local radio station, iFiber, to get messages out. We also use our local paper, the Shelton Mason County Journal, to get information out that way. And we also communicate with our tribal newspapers to get information out in that way. Our website is our hub for all of our district information. So if families miss something that may have come out over an email or a phone call, or they weren't able to pick up, or for whatever reason, all of our district updates are located on our website. Our website is updated almost daily. If there's an update sent out in an email or a phone call, it'll also be on our website for families to come back and refer to. We've established a web page for this school year specifically because there's so many changes. And you can find that by going to www.sheltonschools.org. And on our homepage, you'll see a link for the 2021 school year. If you go there, you're going to find lots of information. There'll be updates with the date on the update of the date. Sorry, I'm mixing up my words. But you will go find all of our updates there. You'll also find information about our Chromebooks, about K-12, about COVID updates from Mason County, about our meal services, and other resources for our families. We've hosted a few open community forums, and these are events where community members can come in and have an interactive dialogue with our staff members and administration. We have scheduled out open community forums for the rest of the year, and those can be found on our district website on the calendar. We're also using our ROW, which is our Resources on Wheels school bus. This bus is used to reach more of our families who may need food or clothing or just need information. So we've been using that, which is an awesome resource, which is pretty new to us still. We have been providing hard copies of some of our information at food sites for families who may come up there and have missed something. And we're also working on training more staff members in the schools to work on editing their websites. The schools have really amped up their websites to make them a more useful and family-friendly tool for families to go and look at. So where we are going, we're working on improving our messaging and timeliness. We want to make sure all of our messages are clear and concise for our families so they're in the know. We've also been working on expanding our Mom and Conquabal translations so we can reach our non-English speaking families more so. And I'm currently in the process of working with our Skyward guru for the district on sending out updates through Skyward for district updates. Schools use Skyward already, but we have not used Skyward as a tool for the district quite yet. Our schools have also been doing a tremendous job working to communicate with all of our families. I'm going to pass the mic over to Amber Targus, who is our principal at Evergreen Elementary, and she will share how our elementary schools are communicating with our families.
Thank you, Katie. You did a really good job. You shared a lot of information that I'm probably going to repeat a little bit, but it's always good to hear it twice. So I'm here to actually speak about how the 3 elementary schools have been communicating with parents and the community. So all 3 schools really have clear communication about, well, to home. So we send robocalls to families on Sunday evenings to notify families of upcoming events for the week and any important reminders. A lot of them recently have been around K-12, really for our young kids, kindergarten through 2nd grade, expecting when their kits are gonna arrive. So that's a big update that's been going out. We really follow an all hands on deck mentality when our students and parents need help. And specifically, it's been recently with accessing online learning. So all of us are answering the phones, all of us are trying to help work through issues that are happening, and everyone's learning as we go. Administrators in all 3 buildings work on returning phone calls and emails as quickly as possible. A lot more emails these days, sometimes not as many phone calls. Sometimes we really like to talk face to face and, you know, on the phone as much as we can because we're getting a lot of emails. Families are contacted daily through numerous ways that Katie mentioned already, but just to kind of recap, Facebook, our school website, robocalls, the Remind app that our teachers are using, Class Connect, K-12, calling, texting, and emailing. They do a lot to connect. Bordeaux and Mountain View have a reader board where they communicate updates to the community. Our office staff is available by phone and email during the school day for questions that might come up around K-12, enrollment, or just general questions. We are always looking for ways to continue to serve our community and their needs better. We are offering an elementary open forum tomorrow from 6:30 to 7 in English and 7 to 7:30 in Spanish for ideas to better support our families for questions and answers as well too. So this was a community suggestion that we listened to, that all voices needed to be heard and that we needed to make sure that it was available in English and Spanish. So we are going to attempt our best tomorrow, and we're excited to see all the parents that turn out, and you know, if we can clarify some questions and if we can get some directions from parents as well too of what they would like to see more of. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Stacy Anderson from Choice and Cedar, who is going to be talking about secondary communications.
Thank you, Amber, and thank you, Katie. I will have a little bit of repetition, but I'll try to share some new things also. So at the secondary level, which includes OMS, OBJH, and the 3 high schools, Cedar, Choice, and Shelton High School, we have been doing very similar things to what Amber talked about at the elementary level. We have our Facebook and websites being updated on a regular basis to give plenty of information out to parents, things like contact information for the staff, how to get into Zoom sites, daily schedules, things like that. Doing community forums on a regular basis. The counselors have created some really awesome virtual counseling centers and resources. So when you go into their counseling centers, you can click right in there and make appointments directly with them as a way to support our students with their social emotional learning needs. We've had a great effort from all of our family liaisons, our tribal tutors, our secretaries, support staff, admin, all of the people, like Amber said, an all hands on deck approach of trying to help families get into K-12, get their login information, use their Chromebooks. I know that we have people who will meet up with them virtually in Zoom or on the phone, or even sometimes social distancing outside if needed to help the families get into these places where they need to be able to get into. On the websites, we have office hours posted. All of the buildings have office hours through the phone and sometimes email and sometimes even in person for people to come in if needed. And in addition to all the support staff we've been talking about, the teachers are just doing an excellent job, in my opinion, of reaching out to their students. In all of the buildings, they are texting, they're using the Remind app like Amber talked about, they're calling, and we've taught them how to make sure that they know how to use those tools so that it doesn't report their home phone numbers, but that they can utilize their own cell phones and things like that without having it report back what their number was, but still keep in contact with families. All of the buildings are doing robocalls in English and Spanish. And we also have the reader boards in certain buildings that are available. And I just want to highlight for each of the buildings those are all the things the buildings have in common. Some of the things though that I want to just highlight: at OMS, they have live office hours where teachers are available live for people to pop in and answer questions. At OBJ, they use their texting abilities to update on issues, everything from K-12 to things like simple things like when there's a power outage or something like that, so families are aware of what's going on. At Choice and at Cedar, one of the things we're able to do is we have check-ins with our students every couple of weeks so that they can meet with the families and the teachers and see how students are doing in classes. Shelton High School is doing a weekly email from their principal with all the upcoming events, information, and recognitions out to the community. So every school is unique, of course, and doing their own things that are reaching out to families and students. And at the same time, a lot of us are doing common things just so we can reach out to everybody possible. And I know for myself, I've learned a lot about how to update websites, keep up on Facebook, and do all of those ways that I know that families can hopefully hear from us. And another kind of amazing thing, I'll just share one final story. The other day we did have an internet outage in one of our Zoom rooms. Our teacher got bumped out, and yet another student was made the host. The student kept the meeting going, And then a teacher who was on their planning period jumped in and took over that room for the students. So they're really just trying every way they can to communicate. And then we also started a little texting chain to all of our teachers saying, please let the kids know that are in a live class that some of their teachers got bumped out and they'll be back as soon as they can. Internet was back up in about 10 minutes and everybody got back in. So I'm not going to say it's not hard. It's been very difficult for everybody. And I know that as parents, people are frustrated, but you know, we are trying really hard to get the word out there. And most of the community and parents I've dealt with have just been very understanding of that. But I do know it's a frustrating time for everybody. So that concludes.
How are we addressing our worries if nobody's listening to us?
This is our opportunity to ask questions and comments. Are there other board members that have questions on the communications aspect? Okay, none.
So I have a quick question. Katie, maybe we can remind the public when the next community forum is coming up, because I think we do have one happening here really very soon.
We do. I will send out a mass email tomorrow. It is on my schedule. And for those listening, it is September 29th. I believe it's 6 p.m. It is posted on our website.
Thank you. And I think there's just some confusion. There is still community comments that will be available tonight, but they're just further down in our agenda. So we are almost, I mean, we're not even halfway through our agenda items. So we're just not at that part of the agenda yet.
Thank you, Carrie, for clarifying that. So if there's no other comment on or questions for communications, then we'll move on. Oh, Lynn, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I did have the opportunity to sit in on the high school's family open forum, and it was the only one that I really was able to sit in on, and I thought it was excellent. Bruce, I appreciate the way that was handled, and you know, the humility that everybody had in answering questions, and the same for tonight. I really appreciated what you said about resiliency, because that to me is really key in what we're all going through, not just with K-12, not just with but just everything that's going on in the world right now. We need to be resilient.
Don't forget, they don't care if you have an email or not, as long as they are pretending to send it.
And anyways, I just want to encourage families to take advantage of these open forums, because you will get the chance to be heard in those, and you will get questions addressed in those. So if you're not feeling like you're able to get your questions answered with your teacher or your principals, take advantage of those as well.
Yes, and then appreciate the translation efforts into Mom and Conchable in Spanish as well, for those things going out. You know, and there's two kinds of communications that we hear people struggle with. One, of course, is from the district, and we've heard about you know, all those different avenues. There's a lot of them out there. But another component of this is parents or students that are feeling like they're having difficulty getting through to a given teacher. So is there, are all teachers using the same platform? Are there different methods at the different buildings? You know, is all email operating the same? Questions maybe for Katie.
I think Amber or Stacy might be able to answer the school building question a little better than I can.
I was going to say, I think some of it is a little bit different, Sandy, just depending on the building and, you know, what works best for the community for that specific building. But I know for ours, like I had a family that actually suggested, you know, we're having a really hard time getting a hold of teachers, and what can we do to connect? And so they actually had a suggestion, which I actually kind of took to heart and adapted it. We posted all our teachers' phone numbers on the website, so their phones to their classroom, but they're able to check those those as well and get the information, and just encouraging email as well too. So that was something that actually we took from the community and adjusted that. So Stacy might be able to speak to secondary though.
Well, I think it's very similar at secondary. I mean, we're just trying to do our very best to make sure that everybody has access to all of that. One of the things we've done for our school specifically is we've posted all of the Zoom links for all of our teachers on the website so that kids can get in if they need to, for example. So that's one of the things we're trying to do to just add to the communication if they're having difficulties.
And I seem to have seen some different email extensions. Do staff have another email address when they're on K-12? Is there any confusion, as to where to reach them at? I see something that seems to say Fuel Ed or something in some of the email addresses.
No, the email addresses should all be the same, Sandy. We all use the district email addresses. People aren't typically giving out any personal email addresses or anything like that. I just think that for whatever, I really don't know what happens, but sometimes it takes more than 24 hours for you to get back to somebody. And, we're trying. We try to get back sooner than that to people, but I think that might be where some of the problem is.
I think one thing that's been different, at least in my experience with the volume of email right now, is because, at least in my experience in the past as a principal, I could pop down and talk to a teacher here or there. Well, everybody's communicating with email now. And so the volumes of email that we're all getting are much, much larger than we've ever had. Now, that's not an excuse at all, but I will say that, people are trying to get through them all and get to them in a timely manner as much as they can.
All righty. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
I do have a comment on that one with the K-12 system. There is an internal email system that uses a customized Outlook fashion. That's not anything that's a district setup, but it is a totally different email system that is in there.
Personal experience, my daughters use that. Sometimes if their teachers are solely on K-12, you can go to a function in K-12 that says, contact my teacher. And so it does go through the Fuel Ed. It doesn't show the school district web or email address for that. But the teachers have been very clear with the student to do that. So they knew to communicate that way. And I actually get copied on every email that my daughter sends to a teacher and that they send back. It goes to my personal email. So I'm seeing their communication.
Nice to know. Very good. All righty. Any other questions or comments on communication? All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for that information. We'll move on to special circumstances. And we'll have Mary Ann Marshall, Kelly Neely, and Chelsea Cornwall Brady.
Right. Good evening to the board. I'm here to report on the process that our buildings took to identify special circumstances. So the first week of school, our administration and our staff were working hard to identify those students who were logging onto the K-12 system and who weren't. The buildings were also keeping a track list of students and families who were not being able to be contacted. So if they were not logging into the system and we weren't able to reach them via email, phone, text message. I mean, I know at times we had, in certain circumstances, we had building administration driving out to houses to check on students to make that contact. So once that was done, that happened the first week of school and it continues to happen. We're monitoring that. Buildings put together a list of students that did not log into K-12. We have not seen them yet, and we have made no contact. The building and their teams sat down and went through that list of students and identified those students who they, through a series of filters, identified as needing to come in to the building for special circumstances for instruction, or whether that was for connectivity. Our first building, Olympic Middle School, started that on the 21st. And so we have Chelsea Brady here, and I would like for her to share the process that Olympic Middle School went through and just share with us how things are going so far.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to share with you about our in-person instruction that began yesterday. I have to say it felt like the first day of school. Everyone involved woke up with the first day of school butterflies and jitters. We were just so excited to finally have kids in the building. So watching them come off the bus and walk into the building and being greeted by the staff that are facilitating the instruction was just heartwarming. And quite honestly, it was the best moment since March 13th when the schools closed. So I just wanted to share that with you. These plans have been in the works since August when we determined that we would be starting the year in stage A with remote learning. As Dr. Apostle shared with the community, we knew that there would be students with special circumstances and that some of our special education instruction and services would need to be provided on campus. We began our process by reviewing students that had not yet logged on to K-12, as Marianne mentioned, or were struggling to communicate with the school for one reason or another. We identified students who needed a hotspot and had not received one yet, or lived in an area that would not support a hotspot. We worked with our counselors, our family liaison, our student support coordinator to identify families in special or just difficult circumstances. So we formulated our plans. We ensured that students were up to date on immunizations, medications, that they had updated information on file. We worked with food service, transportation, maintenance, and district nurses. So it's been a complex process with a lot of moving pieces. It has certainly taken a lot of people coordinating and working together. And all 7 of our schools are going through this same process of identifying students, working with families, and then coordinating with everyone involved. So the setup for each school will look a little bit different. But at OMS, general education students are coming in to use the facilities to log on to K-12. They are working independently with a certified teacher and a para monitoring and assisting with logging in and just kind of assisting students to navigate the platform, finding or completing their assignments. So students are still learning by accessing their teachers and the K-12 curriculum. So this is not a separate program. They are still coming in, logging on, using K-12, and attending those live lessons that you've been hearing about. So currently we have 2 shifts of students that are coming in for about 2.5 hours each day. So we plan to continue to refine and grow. We started small on purpose so that we could make sure that everything worked exactly as we had planned, that our safety plans were solid and that everything is just a well-working machine before we continue to expand. So that's kind of how we got started with our general education students. For special education, and this is district-wide, the district special education staff began a process to review IEPs September 1st through the 8th, and then just began those conversations with parents about delivery options, present levels, and PPE. So the IEP meetings began around September 9th, and they're still being held now to review the needs of our students. Special education staff held IEP meetings, and they used some of the tools provided by OSPI. They have a rubric and decision tree tools and resources that help to assist the entire team in making the decision in regards to service delivery location, recovery services, PPE. So through all of this process, they're able to identify which of those special education students should actually come into the school for their specially designed instruction and services. So many of our schools are ready to start small groups for special education students next week. At OMS, we're excited next week to be welcoming some of our life skills students and some of our students from our functional academic learning program. So just like I mentioned before, we're going to be starting small with them as well. And as we achieve success, we'll continue to work with our families and our teachers to identify more students that could benefit from using the school facilities. So this is where we are getting started with special ed students and general education students with special circumstances. And again, this is all 7 schools are working through this process. We're really excited to get it off the ground. And yesterday was a great day. Today was also wonderful, just having our students there. So are there any questions that I can answer about that specifically?
Thank you, Chelsea, for that. I was just curious, and maybe you said it and I just missed it, but about how many students is that you have back now?
So right now we have about 8 in the morning and about 8 in the afternoon. That's just for this week. We started with those small groups first. And then starting next week, our special education classes are coming in. So we won't have, to get started, we won't have any more than 20 in the morning and then another 20 in the afternoon. Starting small on purpose for sure, just to get everything solid and in place, and then we'll keep going from there.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments from other board members?
How are the safety protocols going, since you're sort of the test case for some of the plans that we put into place earlier on?
You know, it's actually going really well, and that's why it's been nice to just have such a small group to see what it actually looks like, because, you know, best laid plans before they come in, there's going to be hiccups, right? So with a small group, we're able to adjust. But it went beautifully, to be honest with you. They came off the bus and we had our screening station set up. We had our nurse paratech there, and she was doing the screening process. We had a para that was able to translate for students that spoke Spanish. And so students would come up. We had markings on the sidewalk so that they would know to stand 6 feet apart. And all of this was described to them in great detail in the phone calls home prior to coming. So they knew what to expect. It wasn't a surprise. So once they went through the screening process and had their temperature taken, they came in and were basically just shown to their location. I do have a couple of pictures. I don't know, Marianne, if you wanted me to pull those up and kind of show what it looks like. 6 feet apart is definitely, I mean, it's a ways apart. It feels really strange, right? Because we're usually like all together, but do I have the ability to share my screen here, Marianne? And I can show what it looks like.
You should be able, if she doesn't, if you could give her access, that would be great. And thank you, Chelsea, for showing us these pictures, because it does definitely put things into perspective and also shows off the great work your building has done so far.
Thank you. So this is in our gym, and that's the main place right now where we're starting instruction. So this was right after students came in. Let me adjust here so I can get a closer up. So this TV up here has like the schedule that they're going to be following, resources. We have different resources set up around the gym that kids can access. And then as you can see, and these pictures are taken at a distance on purpose, of course, we're not identifying kids, but they come in and they have their own bin with all of their supplies that they might need. It has a Chromebook, you know, paper, pencils, headphones. So anything that they would need is in their own personal labeled bin so that there's no sharing of supplies. That's one of those safety protocols as well. So they come in, they get seated and they get logged on and they get started on their lessons. So I think in one of these pictures, you can actually see a student logged on doing their live lesson. I just stuck a couple in here. So this is our PE teacher, Lita Basinger, and she's facilitating this. She's done an amazing job. And this is our para, Deanna Rotting, walking around helping students get logged on. You know, you've heard a lot tonight about students are still getting to know the system. And so we're kind of excited about the idea that some of these students might just need to be in for a few weeks as they're learning to navigate the system, and we get their hotspot set up and they achieve some success, and then they might be ready to go and do that on their own, and then we can give other students an opportunity to come in. So that's one of the things that we're hoping to achieve here. Oh, this is the picture I was thinking of. So you can see right here, this was yesterday at 8 a.m. He was on his class meeting. And it was just really fun to hear some of the feedback from our teachers saying, oh, I got to see so-and-so for the first time, because they were there and they were able to log on in the moment, and kids were excited. And so you can see here in the picture that, you know, these black crates, and then they have a blue bag. So we gave them a swag bag that was given out at open house, and some of the students weren't able to attend. So they got it there, and they have their own water bottle that they can use. And I mean, we're trying to make it as positive as we can, because it does feel very different, right? To be in school in this type of setting, wearing a mask, and you're sitting so far away from people. So we're also trying to make it as comfortable as we can, but. And then between the two groups, so like we said, they're there for about 2.5 hours, and there's they take a lunch home if they're there in the morning. And then between the two groups, our custodial staff will clean the spaces that were used thoroughly. And then our second group comes, and the first thing that they do is they get their sack lunch and they eat, and then they get started on their afternoon. So again, we're only 2 days in, but so far so good. We're excited, and you know, we already have other students that are on the list to start going through the process. It's definitely not an overnight process. You heard some of the things that have to happen with immunizations and you know, phone calls to parents and transportation. So it's definitely we're nailing it down. But any other questions?
Other board members? I guess I would have one. The plan would be as it's expanded into the other buildings to also use the gymnasium or cafeteria or some large space like that, correct?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, all righty. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All righty. Thank you both very much for that information. I think we can move on to daycare then. I think that'll be Jenny.
It is. Greetings, board and community members. We have a subcommittee set up to discuss childcare and what kind of supports we can provide out in the community. So right now we have 5 daycare centers, large centers and a couple smaller ones, along with 5 staff members on that subcommittee led by Linda Ferguson. Glenn has already talked a little bit about going out and supporting. One of their questions was, can we get internet access or beef up our internet access at these sites so that students can get on board while they're there during the day? So Glenn has been working on that. One of their questions is, can they get Chrome carts at some of those to try and keep the computers up and running during the day? So that's something Glenn is looking into. One of their questions was, can they learn more about K-12 also so that they know how to help students? So Linda sent them information on how K-12 works. The biggest thing that they wanted to know was, how do they troubleshoot with teachers when they've got kids there during the day? And so they worked out a system to get a mutual exchange of information for the childcare providers and the schools with the teachers. So right now they're in the process of getting families to fill those out and get sent back into school so that two-way communication can happen during the school day and doesn't have to wait till parents are home at night when it might not be available to them. Next steps then are getting those mutual exchanges back. Linda is reaching out to the childcare centers right now to see how things are going. And then she's reaching out to the smaller in-home daycares that are not yet part of this team and inviting those people to communicate with her any questions or concerns that they have and try to keep troubleshooting as we go. One of the big issues that they're seeing is that they've got all these kids, and I'm sure it's the same as families with 4 or 5 kids at home. The lunch times are different on the K-12 platform. And so these childcare centers or in-home providers are having a hard time shutting everything down to provide lunch at one time for everyone. So they're troubleshooting through that and that asynchronous versus synchronous, and knowing that they have permission to go ahead and shut down and then jump back on when they're ready. That's where we're at right now. Do y'all have any questions?
I do. What are the ages that are you serving?
Oh, these are typically they can be our 3-year-olds all the way up to middle school age, you know, your normal child care center age students.
And how many are you serving right now?
No, the district isn't serving them. These are our community daycares that we are working with. We're talking to all of our community daycares and centers.
So do you have an idea of how many? I hear a lot about people that need this and there's no place to go.
Oh, there are 5 big centers open right now. And then there's smaller, I don't know how many smaller in-homes we have. Usually our secretaries will know that, so I can actually get in touch with them and see if I can give you a better number, Sally. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's, I mean, that's a huge, huge need in our community.
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions or comments from other board members? How?
Thank you.
Well, no, I have one, sorry.
Oh.
How will the staff at the daycare centers get any training? Are they just gonna get into it and play around and pick it up? Or can they set up a training with K-12 themselves? Or how do they plan to get a little more proficient?
So they got the written training that I'm assuming Kelly provided to Linda to hand out. I would suppose that they could also call the help desk at the different grade levels that's available to troubleshoot during the day. I don't think we have any specific training set up for childcare providers right now. And it would almost have to be a nighttime thing for them to do it and not interrupt their job.
Sorry, Jenny. If they want to contact me, I can always help set up a training to help walk them through getting the kids logged in and the general things that they see. We don't mind doing that at all. Any kind of help that we can provide, we'll provide.
And since they're in essence helping with the learning coaching, does that mean then they could access those help rooms too, the K-5 and the 612?
They, I don't see why not, Sandy. They're helping as well. Usually there are technical questions, but they might have technical questions. So yeah, if they contact me, I'm happy to help set something up.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. That's all my questions. Anybody else with a question or comment?
I'm just assuming that whether a child is in their home or in a center, wherever, that's their learning coach, wherever they're at, and that we would support that. That's my assumption.
Yeah, unless there's some weird regulation or something that we have to be work around or something, I would.
Well, yes, and that's why we're doing the mutual exchange of information. So we give them a clear go ahead to work with the school district in place of the parent.
Okay, very good. All righty, any other questions or comments for Jenny? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to food services, and thank you very much, Jenny.
Hey, good evening. I have Catherine Ward, the Director of Food Services, here with me tonight to give you some details. As you know, again, on March 13th, we shut down and the Food Service Department jumped right in and got the new guidelines from USDA and started serving meals immediately to families, which they've been just great. Whatever USDA changes on the rules, they have been flexible to move with it quickly. So I'm going to let Catherine just take over and tell you what we're doing and where we're moving forward to from that point. Catherine?
Good evening, everybody. So currently, food service is operating 3 meal distribution sites. We have one at the Shelton High School, one at Evergreen Elementary, and one at Bordeaux Elementary. We serve all school days for this program, and we're open 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. September 14th, we started 2 bus routes, one that goes to Blevins Road, Springfield Loop, and Oak Park, and another that goes Cole Road Park and Ride, Fawn Lake, Lynch Road Fire Station, and Taylor Station Store. When our meal distribution for school started on September 2nd, we did 218 meals, and as of today, we are averaging about 500 meals a day. So obviously, it's gone up. Monday, September 21st, we started to deliver meals at the Olympic Middle School for the kids that are there to do in-person learning, and we are currently working with the other building principals to do the same in the near future. I've been working with several families that have not been able to make it to either of the meal distribution sites because of time restrictions or transportation issues. And so far, we've been able to make accommodations for all of those families so that those students do receive meals. In the future, we want to continue to work with building principals for meals for in-person learners. We will check into additional bus routes if we hear that there is a need, and continue to work with families on a case-by-case basis for meal distribution if they're having a hard time getting meals. So what it boils down to is we want to do everything we can to make sure that our kids have meals available to them for every school day. So if you have any questions.
Board members with questions or comments?
I'm just glad to hear, I'm very glad to hear that those new routes have increased the meal distribution and that families are able to get the food for their students, for their kids. And I'm also happy to hear that we're able to accommodate some of those situations where they just can't make that work. So, you know, as we do start to look into the possibility of bringing in, you know, either more small groups or even the hybrid situation, I'm hopeful that we can continue to increase just that food for families.
Yes, and I think it will. The families have really been appreciative of the accommodations we've been able to make, you know, and we will do whatever we need to do to make sure the kids get the family. And hopefully we'll be able to do additional bus routes, you know, if we do find the need. So,
yeah, thank you very much for your hard work on that always.
You're welcome.
Other school board members with any other comments or questions? All righty. I think we can say thank you very much, Catherine, for your information on that. And I think we can move on to transportation then. And that'll be Brenda and Holly Tucker.
So I will do a similar with transportation. I want to give kudos to Holly and her staff. Routing is very difficult on bus routes to get those things moving correctly. And they have been great to work with the schools and their plans to start bringing some small groups of students back. When I called her and asked about doing the food service runs, she was more than happy to jump right on that and get a couple more buses on the road. So kudos to that staff. I'm just going to go ahead and let Holly take over from there and give you what's going on in transportation.
Good evening. Good evening. Currently, we have 7 bus routes and we're utilizing 7 drivers. We have 2 food service routes, as Catherine had mentioned. We have 3 out of district routes, and then we have 2 routes currently taking students to OMS, and we'll have more starting here shortly. We have Pathways program starting transportation, and then we have life skills students also will start here shortly next week, and then October 1st, and we'll be starting preschool also. Currently, we have 32 students registered to ride the bus. Not all students are currently ready or riding right now, but we hope to have them riding here shortly. It's nowhere close to our 3,400 that we normally have riding the buses, but we'll get there hopefully this year. We do have to report 3 times a year in regards to it, and our reporting dates are October 30th, January 29th, and April 30th. So our first count will be coming up soon, and it'll be a very small count for students to from transportation. That's the only ones what we can count for. And we hope to, when students come back incrementally, and then bringing them back and working with all the schools to bring in those small staffs of students to attend school. And then we have some pretty exciting news. Starting Tuesday, Buddy the Bulldog will be riding one of our lunch routes to connect with families on the Bordeaux district area, which is pretty cool.
So just a reminder for the board and the public, transportation along with food services, their funding is generated from their program and they have to live within that program. So we need those kids riding the bus to generate that revenue to be able to keep, doing more. So the more kids we can bring in, the more revenue we'll be generating. Same with the meals. The more meals we can serve, the more we can keep adding to it. So that's our hope, add to both programs.
Does anybody have any questions?
Board members with any questions?
I would be curious, just like Sally asked about with Chelsea in the school with small groups, how is it going as far as social distancing on the bus? Are you having to have the windows open? I guess what are the safety precautions that you are following?
So we do have to have the driver's window open and the student windows cracked. They don't have to be fully down, and students are required to wear a mask unless their IEP or 504 plan says that they're not required to wear one. And then we're doing every other seat in the bus. And right now we're using a big bus to transport. I think the biggest load the other day was 7 students. So we've got plenty of room right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are we doing temperature checks before they get on the bus?
No, because state law says that if a student is at a bus stop that we cannot deny them a ride on the bus.
Okay. Good to know. Any other questions or comments from other board members? Okay. Seeing none. Well, thank you very much for that update, and
You're welcome.
appreciate the information. Next, we have Dr. Apostle with the plan to bring students back to school. Dr. Apostle, you're muted. You still seem to be muted.
How about now?
There. That's good.
I'm sorry. It wouldn't unmute for some reason. But we have on our list there, teacher training. And I know Kelly discussed professional development for staff, and the board had specific questions. Do you want any more information on professional development teacher training? You're okay with that one? Okay. All
I
right.
think so. We asked a lot of questions during that segment, so I think we have that.
Very good. Well, thank you for allowing me to share with you our plan. Actually, it's a Mason County plan to bring students back to school. At my recommendation, we are meeting with all Mason County superintendents to develop a comprehensive and consistent plan to bring our students back to school in a very logical fashion, which includes closely monitoring the COVID-19 pandemic in our planning, which will include flexibility to adjust regardless of the challenges that we will all face with COVID-19. That's the first step. A critical component of any planning will be to include principals, teachers, support staff, and of course, our school board. And we are going to do that each and every step of the way, which I will emphasize in our initial Mason County Superintendent meeting, which is scheduled again for this Friday at 11 o'clock in the Shelton School District. Step 3 to all this is we discussed this today in a union meeting. Next week, we are in the process of making plans with our union leaders to meet with each school staff to determine needs and most of all, ask for what will work best for students, staff, and families when we're developing our plan to return. So basically, the executive council of the teachers union and myself, and maybe a few staff members, we will meet individually with each building staff. And we're going to have a conversation. How are things going? What is it that you need to keep going? And if we if and when we bring our students back, what system will work for you and what are some of your needs? But we're going to do that with every single school, and we're going to start that process next week. And this is rather new. I just informed Mary Ann about what we were going to do today, and she's going to share this process with her principals, possibly tomorrow, and then we'll schedule the times for our visits. The one thing that's going to be very important as we go through this process is that the end goal needs to be that when we bring our kids back to school, we want it to be in a very harmonious manner and productive manner. We want people to come back knowing that they had a say in how we were going to proceed to bring students back, and we're going to have a positive attitude throughout our school district. And that is very important. So how are we going to make that happen? Not only are we going to visit with all the schools, but we will accomplish this by communicating early and often with all constituents regarding the plan through open forums, board meetings. And I will tell you this, that we're not going to spend too much time talking. We're going to put the plan together. And we want to move forward as soon as possible, making sure everybody has a say. But we are going to put the plan together, and I'm not going to discuss tonight when we plan on launching because we've got to meet first and discuss a few things. So that's how we're going to bring our kids back to school. I know everybody's anxious to bring our students back to school, parents, teachers, administrators, myself, the school board, the entire community wants to see our kids back in school face to face. But it's going to be very important that we maintain the safety and security of our staff, our students, and our families. That's a critical piece that's going to be discussed throughout our planning and when we end up with our ultimate plan. So that's the process that we're going to be initiating this Friday, and we're going to be moving rather quickly so that we can be preemptive in establishing a plan and bringing it forward to the community and to the school board. We're not going to hesitate to get the plan ready.
Questions or comments from school board members? Okay. I'm just very appreciative of the fact that you'll be networking with the other superintendents in the other school districts around us, because we are the high school district for our neighboring non-highs, how we come back to school has to fit with the way they're coming back to school.
And,
So,
you know, and I will say this, or excuse me, go ahead, Sandy.
Just the fact that we're going to be working together on it should really help all those other families, and hopefully it'll help eliminate some confusion and weird schedules. And
yeah, I was rather surprised how eager all the other superintendents were to basically they wanted to know what we were going to do in the Shelton School District in terms of bringing our students back. And that's when I said, you know, what's going to be real important is that we have some consistency so that we're not confusing people in the various districts. And that's when I just said, let's get together and let's put a plan together that makes sense and that will be consistent, and it'll be logical as we move forward. So they were excited to meet, and they wanted to meet this Friday, and I said, well, let's make it happen. So good things are going to come about. I can feel that.
Can I? Yeah, I would like to add a comment also. I know that along with the superintendents, I believe Dr. Stein from the Department of Health plans to be at that meeting as well too.
That's correct.
I was on the Board of Health meeting, which occurs every third Tuesday, every other month, and that was today. And they were, the Director of Health, Dave Wyndham, and Dr. Stein both said how much they have appreciated the partnership with the school district all the way through this COVID situation. I know that they've been having weekly meetings with the school district, as well as reviewing different plans that have been coming out for all of these special situations. And they very much appreciated the fact that those are being written up and they're given those to review. I did talk to Dave about, because with COVID, the state Department of Health has come up with a decision tree and certain measurements that they would like each community to have as far as the health goes. And so those have not typically been published, but it is something that our local health department looks at weekly. So what he was saying is that he is going to look at kind of putting together that risk dashboard and publishing that on a weekly basis so that our community can see where we fall with those measurements. The number one being the case rate per 100,000 for a 14-day period of time. Currently, we're in a moderate level. We were lower last week and we spiked up a little bit. I'm sure people saw that we had 12 cases that got reported on Monday. And they made a comment about that in the public board meeting this morning. That was a large family home. So they don't anticipate that that's something that's going to be like a big outbreak. But of course, we're right in that time frame of coming 2 weeks off of Labor Day weekend. So as we plan to come back into any hybrid situation with any, groups of students coming back in, we do have to monitor the health of our community with that case rate per thousand. We have to look at the hospital bed rate, which Mason County is doing just fine with that. And then just COVID cases in the hospital in general. And currently we're fine with that marker as well. So we would have to be below 25 cases for being completely in-person instruction. And of course that this can ebb and flow depending on how cases are. They did talk again about vaccinations, that those are not necessarily going to be widely available. Some of the first ones may be available in November, but you have to store them at like 80 below zero. And so there's, that's just not something that people are going to be having a lot of, and they will go to first responders, healthcare workers first. So that was just some of the information from the health department that I did want to share. They are going to put together those decision tree specifically about going back to school markers and publish those on a weekly basis. And I guess one other thing, they did say that they wanted to have one point person for each school district that would be able to answer potentially parent questions because they themselves don't have the staffing to have everybody calling them up to ask questions about things like that. So they are going to try to publish the information, but then also look at possibly a point person in the school district that can answer some of those questions if parents have them.
Sure. I'd be happy to be the point person, and what I don't know, I can find out and communicate to the people. But I think one of the things that I mentioned is extremely important to our success. That is to reach out to the individual schools and get input from the teachers and to work together with all of the superintendents in the county. That's going to make the difference. So stay tuned. I'll be reporting to you at various intervals to keep you aware of what's going on. If there are issues, I will bring them forward for your review and your suggestions. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions from board members?
I just really appreciate the partnership and working together with our whole community. I think that's really important, and we'll support our work not just right now, but in the future as well. It's always a good thing to work with all of our neighbors.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All righty, hearing none, then we can move on to the enrollment and revenue update with Brenda Trogstad. Something we're monitoring very carefully these days.
Almost daily.
Hourly sometimes.
Yes, that's true. As you know, since Dr. Apostle has been in Shelton School District, we have consistently budgeted our enrollment conservatively, which is fiscally responsible to do. As you heard from the state auditors, they look at our fiscal responsibility in a state audit. So you have to be very careful with how you're budgeting enrollment, just in case those kids don't show up. That's what generates our money from the state. So the current year we budgeted at 4,125 full-time students. I am pleased to say in the enrollment, our first enrollment that we're going to report to OSPI tomorrow, we are above budget by 91.83 FTE. We currently have 4,216.83 FTE in students in Shelton School District. It's kind of taken a different look this year. Normally our elementaries kind of carry us, but now this year our secondaries are carrying us. So we've kind of done a flip-flop this year, but I'm just happy to be above budget, and I'm very optimistic that we'll continue that and we'll start getting additional kids back in the system. So that's all I have on enrollment, but good news there for our first count. So
if I may, Sandy, in my meeting this morning with the ESD 113 and 114 superintendents, Superintendent Reichdahl indicated that there's a real problem across the state with many school districts not meeting their projected enrollment, and he's hoping that the state will recognize this issue once the September enrollment information is submitted. But many districts, I won't name any, I know a few, are hundreds and hundreds of students below their projected enrollment. So we're one of the few, according to Superintendent Reichdahl, that have hit and gone beyond the projection. And I would just like to thank our parents and our families and our students for sticking with us during very difficult times. That shows a tremendous commitment on the part of the communities to support the Shelton school districts. And I'm extremely grateful and thank you to each and every family that is determined that through thick or thin, they're going to stick with us. And we're going to work hard to make the system better. Right along with that, I should mention that Superintendent Reichdahl also made the comment that districts across the state and across the country are experiencing traumatic events based on one thing. Many school districts are employing multiple instructional platforms that are confusing parents, and individual teachers along with that are moving forward with their own version of instruction. And that's causing turmoil in school districts. His recommendation was stick to one platform and do everything you can to make it work. Because if you go beyond that, it's very confusing for parents. So I thought that was very important to share with you in relation to our enrollment and our revenue. Brenda, maybe you can state what, in terms of revenue per student, what do we generate?
Last year it was $8,000 per student. I'm waiting for our first apportionment report to come. Should be any day now from Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, just to confirm what we're going to get for the 2021 school year.
So the 91 students, that's quite a bit of money.
Yes, it's about a little over $700,000.
Yeah, and we'll take that.
Yes, we need that.
Thank you very much. Brenda, do we have a sense of whether or not we're picking up any of the students that neighboring districts are losing? Are they coming to us, or are they just staying home?
Yeah, I don't think so. Our receptionist tracks like our homeschooling and our choice transfers in, and I took a look at last year's reports and this year's, and I haven't really seen much difference in the names on there yet. So, but we're going to continue monitoring that. She told me she would send the new updated report at the end of this month so I can take another look at it. So.
Thank you. I didn't expect necessarily that we were, since we're just above our own projections, but I thought I'd ask. Other questions or comments from other school board members? Okay. Seeing none, we have completed our discussion on the opening of school report. It's been rather lengthy. We do appreciate everybody taking the time to listen in and observe the school board as we're asking these questions and getting reports from staff. We don't expect that we'll solve every problem tonight. We know we didn't solve every problem tonight, but we'll keep plugging away at it. And again, invite people to attend the community forum next Tuesday, and that is a Q&A session. That is not a board meeting. So that is a much different format. And at this point in time, we move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Sandy. First, I would like to thank my staff for what I believe was a tremendous job in a short period of time to report the opening of school to our school board. I'm very thankful and grateful for your efforts and for being so comprehensive in your report. I thank you very much. I would like to announce that I will be retiring at the end of the 2020-21 academic year, which is June 30th, 2021. This is a decision I made almost 2 years ago and informed the school board of my decision at that time. We okay? Okay.
Yes, sir.
We as a staff, community, and school board have accomplished many great achievements for the Shelton School District and community in the past 5.5 years. We have developed and implemented academies, continued to expand academic programs and student options, reconfigured our schools, reviewed goals and objectives of our entire K-12 instructional program, passed a major bond issue, passed every levy the past 5 years, reconstructed our athletic facilities, built a new elementary school, and improved and remodeled the rest of our schools. And there are many other things, but what I would like to cite is that we made it a priority to take a strong stance on staff performance in respect to standards and expectation in relation to all positions to make all these great things happen. That was not easy to do, but we did it. I feel we have brought the Shelton School District to a new and vibrant place that only after the pandemic subsides will we again appreciate and realize the effort, sacrifice, and hard work the school board, staff, and community have put forth in making the Shelton School District second to none. At the end of my career, I will be content, very content to know that the foundation for continued success will have been laid and that the school district is in good hands. As a community, we should be very proud of our elected school board members and our staff who have poured their heart and soul, just as I have, into making the Shelton schools the very best for all students. I would like to thank the school board again for their commitment, courage, and support. Their determination and love for our students and community is beyond approach, which is further substantiated by the Washington School Boards Association, who recognized our school board as a school board of distinction each of the past 2 years. We have a great school board. We're very lucky. Thank you to the many community members for your unwavering and continued support of our students and the Shelton schools. I want to thank someone very special to me. I want to thank my wife, Susan, for always being there for me and never complaining of my long work weeks and late nights. She always knew and understood that what I was doing was of the utmost importance to me. Someone else I would like to recognize her for her patience and understanding is my executive assistant, Allison Nutt. Allison, thank you very much. The pandemic will end. The clouds will part, and the Shelton School District will rise to heights never imagined. I know that in my heart. Thank you to my cabinet, to our principals and assistant principals, counselors, and support staff, and teachers, and the wonderful people of Shelton. You are what matters, and I know you will continue to make the difference. We will continue in Shelton to run away from mediocrity. And to our students and families, I want you to know that we share your challenges and that we will continue to support you and work together. Remember, better days are coming. Please stay safe, and students, continue to concentrate on your education like never before. We are here to support you and lead you towards success. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that announcement, for your comments, your praise of district and staff. And at this point, the next item on our agenda would be community comments. And I see that we do have a hand raised. And again, just please state your name, and we no longer require the address, but please state your name. And our host will give you a reminder, 30 seconds with 30 seconds remaining. And, just be mindful of your comments. And host, I'll let you lead off with our first.
Yes, ma'am.
Community comment.
Guest identified with the phone number ending in 0815. You have the floor for 3 minutes. *6 to unmute yourself, please.
Hi. Sorry about that. My name is Samantha Richardson. I'm calling as a parent of a kindergartner and a 7th grader. I am just calling because I don't think that everything I heard today is accurate for both my children. My kindergartner right now only gets 30 minutes a day with her teacher, but then is expected to spend 3 hours at home with me. And for kindergarten, that's just not reasonable. I have many friends that have kindergartners. Most of them aren't getting home till 5 o'clock. Cook dinner for your kids, and you're not starting kindergarten with your kids till 6 o'clock at night, and then expect them to be doing schoolwork till 9 and get up and do it all over again. I mean, that's just not reasonable for kindergartners right now. My other concern is the material just doesn't seem age appropriate. I just got her history book today because we still don't have all of the material for kindergartners. We're lucky if we're going to get them by next week. But just the material that's provided isn't even kindergarten level. I mean, we're talking, my son did this stuff in 3rd grade. For my 7th grader, I'm also concerned because the classes are not being recorded. They're not available. So if he isn't able to log in, he has no way to go back and learn, algebra or whatever they're learning right now. I've reached out to the teachers. I've emailed the principal asking. They're not live. I mean, they're live, but they're not recorded. So there's no way for him to go back and learn the material. He now has to teach himself. I think my frustration is that we were sold that this was the option of being teacher-led or parent-led, and it's definitely more parent-led than teacher in a lot of areas, especially for kindergarten. Honestly, if my daughter wasn't 6, I probably wouldn't have her in school right now, and I would wait a year because this is just not reasonable. And she's a child with an IEP, so she technically needs help, and we're not getting it because she's social emotional, and that's just not okay to me. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much for the comments. Host, can we get contact information for that individual privately so that we can make appropriate follow-up?
I will see what I can do, but unfortunately I erased
if not, will that
over the phone number. So I will have to see what we can do to get contact information. if you can contact or send an email to schoolboard@sheltonschools.org with your contact information. We'll see what we can do to get that taken care of for you.
I have that parent's information. I've been in contact with her before. I'll give her a call.
Thank you very much, Kelly. All righty. Do we have another community comment?
Yes, ma'am. There's another individual identified as 7482 with a hand raised. You have 3 minutes, and I will give you a.
That's me.
Your name, sir?
My name is Tom St. Clair, and I have a kid in kindergarten at Evergreen Elementary. My concern to start with is that I'm going to bring up concerns, and no action is going to be taken on my concern, and action equals listening. So I'll just throw out a few things that I have written down. It's about 3 weeks, and my kid still really isn't getting any curriculum. He's just barely got some things in the mail today. And again, I think as the parents said before, some of it seemed a little above kindergarten level work. I don't think you guys listened when K-12 was not vetted. It didn't go through the proper process. You guys shortcutted the process, and I have questions about how that happened. Parents are struggling to access this, including the ELL parents at Evergreen Elementary. Evergreen Elementary is potentially a great program for the immigrant parents in the Shelton School District. And K-12 utterly shortcuts them. And I couldn't imagine being a parent who couldn't speak English right now. It would be horrible. Teachers are also struggling to understand it. I mean, you guys heard earlier in the meeting, an hour and a half of training on a whole new curriculum. That's utterly ridiculous. I mean, it's not even reasonable. It's basically a homeschooling program. If you look at the reviews online, even the people who it gets like 2.5 stars as a homeschooling program. It's not appropriate for teachers delivering it. It's supposed to be a teacher-led thing. Any parent who's trying to work can't teach this program. So it's really ridiculous. And then you guys spent $2 million on it. I'm wondering if the reason you guys refuse to look back and rethink whether or not this is a good idea relates to whether or not you can get your $2 million back. The other thing that's even potentially a civil rights violation is that you won't provide packets, and you won't provide a whole lot of information in Spanish for folks, and you won't allow your teachers to use Google Classroom. I know for a fact from other folks that Google Classroom and even Zoom are actually pretty user-friendly. They've been used for a lot longer. They've been worked through for a lot longer, and you won't even allow your teachers to work with those things to be able to make things work for their students. Teachers know their students, and you won't let them do that.
30 seconds.
So anyways, I'm wondering what's going to get your attention. Is it going to be the OSPI investigation that I've heard is going on? Is it going to be a lawsuit? I'm wondering what's going to happen. And again, I want to see action. I don't think you guys are listening, and I want to see action. I want to see some listening to the teachers and the parents and about whether or not this K-12 thing is appropriate. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have you sent us an email with your kindergartners, with concerns about your kindergartner, sir, so that we have contact information? I would. Please do.
No.
Okay. All righty. It's very muffled. I'm not sure if you're still
I
talking.
think that's feedback from a YouTube session being played
Okay.
through.
All righty, then host, we can have our next community comment, please.
Have an individual identified.
I'll send them an email.
Thank you very much, sir.
5995.
No, I muted myself.
Okay, I think we are calling on the last 4 digits, 5995. Is that person there? And
hello?
thank you. You've unmuted yourself. You've reached the public comment period of the Shelton School Board meeting. Please state your name and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is Sierra Valley. I have 3 students attending Evergreen Elementary this year. I have a kindergartner, I have a first grader, I also have a second grader. On top of all 3 of them being very young, obviously, they also all 3 have IEPs. Now, my issue is that my children are not receiving support in any aspect. They're not receiving their IEP support. They're also not receiving any type of teacher support. They do their Zooms, they do, their Zoom meetings, but then they're expected to do all this work and there's no teacher there for them to ask a question to. I'm one person. I can't make 3 of me to be sitting at every computer at the same time. And on top of that, I have a preschooler who's also doing distance learning. So you have all these parents that are speaking out, telling you these issues. I've reached out to principals, deans of students. I've even called the district office and left multiple messages to be called back and never hear from nobody. I've sent emails. So what are we supposed to do? Am I supposed to just say, okay, I'm done and stop doing it? Because it's frustrating. My children don't understand it. That's really all I have to say, and I'm not the only parent. So
We thank you very much for that, and we would appreciate it if you would give us another opportunity by giving us your contact information, and we'll forward it on to the appropriate person and see if we can't get some resolution for you. All right.
We have one more individual identified with the last 4, 6287 with their hand raised.
All righty. You'll have to remind them how to unmute themselves, perhaps.
*6 will unmute you.
And 6287, phone number ending in 6287, you would have the floor when you have unmuted yourself.
I am here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you for allowing me to speak again. My name is Lori Chappell. I wanted to speak to the parents, and again, with my comments in the beginning about, as I have been sitting through this board member, people have reached out through Facebook Messenger, who I'm not friends with, but heard that I was on here, to talk about their frustration of not having support for kids with IEPs. When I spoke earlier about Carrie, her interaction with a teacher who wasn't sure how to use a para, and Dr. Apostle's things about paras, and my comments about OMS being the role model school for how they are using their paras to support kids. My day is filled doing small group support instruction and working with teachers throughout the day. Every single para that is assigned to OMS is working from the building and working with students in some capacity. Right now, I had to move from my SPED position to a much needed ELL position because they need help. But that leaves the SPED side short, so we need some more SPED hours for our kids. But with the support of our admin and our SPED team, we paras can help support these kids in these small groups. We are learning K-12 right along with the teachers. At our school, if a teacher learns something new, they share it with everybody, and that includes our paras. We are a team there working together. Today, I had to go into a new class. I had time to talk with the teacher about curriculum and some other things so that I could best support the students that I'm working with. It is a very collaborative process, and I am very proud to be working under Chelsea and Maddie, who have entrusted the paras to do this work to support these students. I've heard parents say to me, wow, I wish I had that with my kids. With our FELT program, some of those kids who are now in that program, and those families will get supported. Like we have said through the whole time, we have so much need, and there's not enough of us. But
30
we're
seconds
trying.
remaining.
We're trying the best we can. I appreciate, the board and the teachers and everyone at the district level trying to come together to make things work for our whole families. And I know we can't solve all the problems, but I want you to think about this resource that you have with Paris that might be able to take some of these burdens off this family. Thank you for your time. And I appreciate all the work that you guys have done on behalf of the Shelton School District.
Thank you very much. It occurs to me, we've focused this meeting and a couple of sessions on problems because those need to be addressed, but there are many, many, many successes. And, she's describing some of those, and we don't want to lose sight of the fact that there are those successes, but we do want to talk about the challenges that we still need to work through. So with that, host, are there any other community comments?
None that I am aware of at this time. There are no other hands showing as raised.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this point in time, we will move on to board member comments. Do I have a volunteer to go first?
I can go first. I wanted to take a moment to thank everybody for the reports tonight. It was illuminating. It was good to hear some of the things that are going well, and it was also good to hear some of the areas where we need to improve and that we're working to improve in. I appreciate the fact that this is an ongoing process. This is not where we expect it to be, and hopefully very soon, we'll have the opportunity to start bringing kids back to school as we move towards making a plan for that. I appreciate Dr. Apostle working with the other districts in our county. This really is an all hands on deck kind of thing as we start moving ahead. I also wanted to take just a moment to say thank you. First to Susan Apostle, because we know all the time that she's given up Dr. Apostle. But I also wanted to thank Dr. Apostle for the years that he has given the Shelton School District. Little did we know when the previous board hired him, the person that we were getting with all of the big plans, and that he was going to change the face of our district. I'm very proud of the work that he's done, the changes he's made, and the fact that he brought a big vision. I think he probably dreamed bigger than any of us really realized, and I appreciate the fact that he was willing to take that on. Our district looks different. Academies, new buildings, new athletic facilities, the changes in how teachers teach, how we administer the district. Those are all very positive things that are going to outlast all of us. And Alex, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally.
Thank you very much, Sally. Who would like to go next?
I can go if that's all right. I just also really wanted to thank everyone who presented tonight. I know our agenda kind of took a shift at the last minute to really focus on K-12 and how school's been going since the beginning of the year. And the board is all hearing the public and the concerns. And I know our staff is all hearing that as well. It is an ongoing issue. I guess one thing I would like for us to be looking at, I know we're looking at, but I want to encourage everyone with our enrollment numbers where they are, and just hearing how complex this issue is with distance learning and our transition back to in-school learning. I would like to see us trying to bring back as many people as possible to attack this issue. Paris can support the K-12. I think, the custodians issue, it's a valid point, and we can utilize our bus drivers and our food service people now in this transition period to be delivering more meals. We need our secretaries. I mean, all of these people, if we can do it, if our enrollment numbers hold, I would like to see us try and get as many people back to work as possible, as quickly as possible. And I know there's a process with doing that as well, but I guess I just wanted to emphasize that. I think that's super important. And then, I'm so happy to hear, Dr. Apostle, that you are working with the other superintendents to look at a return to school plan. And I think that will help alleviate some of this burden that is, on our families and in our community. We're hearing that as well. And then to you, Dr. Apostle, I've only got to work with you for a very short time, and I think my best way to describe you as a leader is you're a visionary leader, and you have had tremendous accomplishments in the very short time that you've been with our district. I've lived here my whole life. I don't think I've ever seen a more visible superintendent in our community. Somebody, and I think that the things that you have accomplished, you and your team, I realize it's a team, but the vision that you set for our team to accomplish really has positioned our district for the future. I feel like it's unfortunate for you to be ending in this really tumultuous time, because it really does take away from your accomplishments, and I wish it didn't. But I do think that this does give the district an opportunity moving forward, once we're out of this pandemic, to refocus, and now that we're positioned, look at what are the next needs for our community and our kids and our schools. So thank you, Dr. Apostle, and thank you for mentoring me in this short time that I've been on the board, and but just for helping to make our community a better place because of the growth in our school district.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Feelings are mutual.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Looks like Sally Brownfield's next.
So I don't think I can say it much better than Sally Carr about how far we've come. And it's true, as Lynn has said, the visibility. I have appreciated the partnerships throughout the community that Dr. Apostle really has headed for our whole district. And that plays out, not just at that level, but throughout our schools and in our classrooms. We've got a lot of great learning experiences that have happened over the past few years that really has incorporated our community partners. And let's don't lose sight of that. When this darn pandemic gets on its way, we will see those lasting changes and build even further on them. I would like to see our kids back in schools, but I'm going to remind everybody that our foremost consideration beyond the academics is the safety, the health and welfare of our children, first, our staff, all of our people. And so I just encourage people, be safe, wear those masks, sanitize, keep all those safeguards going so that we can get together sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you very much, Sally. Carrie?
Yes. Gosh, I'm not sure exactly where I want to start. I'm definitely hearing loud and clear the community concerns about K-12, and definitely hearing, a lot of this is happening at the elementary grades, and then it does seem like there's a lot of concerns up at the high school. So I am hoping I do know that everybody that's working for the school district is listening and trying hard to revise these things, and everybody is being flooded by emails. But I know that this is the time that we all have to dig deep and try to continue to help people as much as we can to get through this. I get fatigued myself. I'm living it. I'm working and on 3-hour school board meetings, as well as trying to help my own kids with their education. So that all of that is weighing on me tremendously. And I appreciate all of the reports that we got tonight. I appreciate how hard people are working. I see it. And it's just really, it's hard. It's hard for parents. It's hard for all of you. It's a hard time. And like I said, I'm feeling that. I want to say thank you to Stacy for putting on a wonderful graduation that I got to attend on Friday. I'm so glad that the smoke in the air did not cause that graduation to get moved again. It's always wonderful. It's the best part of being on the school board. Hands down, for me, the best part is seeing any of those kids smile and get nervous before they walk up, even in a drive-through graduation, to walk up and get their diploma and have their family yell and scream for them and just be excited that they accomplished this, that they finished 12 years. That was amazing, and I loved it. And Dr. Apostle, I can't say any more than what everybody else has said. It has been wonderful working with you for the last 6 years. Because I have 2 younger daughters that are going through this school district, I can never thank you enough for the things that you have helped establish that my daughters will get to benefit from with these new buildings, with the academies, with the trades that are coming, with the athletic facilities, the community partnerships. I've never seen someone work so hard as I've seen you work. And I've worked with a lot of people. And, you were in this community sometimes at 5 a.m. at breakfast meetings, and you would stay, well into the evenings. And, I don't know if there was ever even a time that you took a sick day, but, you are a very big example of hard work. And I appreciate so much of what you've done. And I know you're going to work just as hard up until the moment that you are done. So I have no doubt about that, and just want to thank you for what you've done.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carrie. For my comments, I also want to thank staff for the presentations, for being willing to talk about the problems that we have to work through and not just hide them. It's best to talk about them in the open. And for everybody that's frustrated, please allow us another opportunity to address your concerns and your challenges. And again, I'll plug the community forum next Tuesday night. Again, that's a Q&A session. It's not a school board meeting, so it has a totally different format. Carrie mentioned the Choice High School graduation, and that it is one of the big highlights of the year, both the graduations and the Drake Scholarship. Those are big events. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make that one, but they are nice events. And, as far as Dr. Apostle's announcement tonight, I was part of the board that hired Dr. Apostle as our superintendent. And if memory serves me, he had retired from education after 30 plus years, but that didn't stick. He came out of retirement and went back to education for many more years. When we hired him in 2015, I remember thinking that even if he only accomplished half of what his resume declared, the district would benefit greatly. And the board expected that we'd only have the benefit of his expertise for a couple of years before he'd retire for real this time. Maybe 3 years if we were really lucky, and perhaps 4 if he just couldn't leave education alone. Well, tonight he announced his retirement effective at the close of this school year. And he's been gracious enough to dedicate 6 years to the school district, helping us navigate so many amazing accomplishments and monumental milestones as attested by my fellow board members. And his numerous awards demonstrate the sentiments expressed throughout the community. You know, we looked at his inevitable retirement throughout the years, feeling fortunate to expand and grow under his superintendency for yet another year. More than a year ago, he chose the end of this school year as his retirement date. And while bittersweet, the reality is that this is the moment the district and the board have been preparing for. Since the day Dr. Apostle arrived, he has served to encourage people, improve procedures, and implement strategies in order to leave the Shelton School District better than it was, to build a solid foundation for a subsequent superintendent, to facilitate a smoother transition from his leadership to the next. He has worked tirelessly to help the board and the district function better, more efficiently, and stronger than before. Because of his vision, our district has created more educational opportunities for our students. So while the board, the district, and the community must start the process of finding his replacement, I'm excited for him and for Susan. They're moving into a new phase of life, which is cause to celebrate. Truly, it is well earned and well deserved. But I suspect Susan may need to put blinders on him because he may have a hard time leaving without checking back in on the district from time to time. So Dr. Apostle, it's been an honor to have worked with you from day one, and I look forward to continuing to work with you throughout this final year. Thank you for giving so much of yourself.
Sandy, you're very kind. I appreciate your kind words. And there's no question, it's full throttle to the end, to the very end. And I will do everything I can to make sure that we are stronger than ever by the end of this academic year, both in terms of budget, program, and you name it. But, you know, I think what you saw tonight was a great team of people. And I'm very fortunate to have the people around me that I have today. We've worked at it to put the best people in position, and we have done that. And I think you see that over and over again when our people come forward to report to you. And I'm so pleased about this evening. Yes, we have a lot of work to do. And I know there's people that think we can do much better, but guess what? We're going to do much better. And we have the people to make that happen. And we have the school board to continue the great work that we've started. And I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
And we thank you. All righty, we have no need for an executive session this evening. So at this time, would someone like to make a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I know it's been a very long night. I appreciate everybody hanging in there with us till the end.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.